The menacing man declared, "Theodore Miller, from this moment on he is no longer a magician." It was the Royal Magic Tournament, the final. Our hero fought alongside Sylvia. Sylvia turned out to be a very strong girl. Theo summoned Mira and she created a stone wall. After blocking Sylvia's attack, Theo then attacked her. But as we saw earlier, Sylvia was very strong. The man asked why Theo didn't just give up. Theo answered because he wants to be a magician. The man said in total, from all the written exams, 3 points were deducted. Taking this into account, the results can be considered almost perfect, but unfortunately, in this school, magical power is more important, and Theo has 0 of it. And if he doesn't fix this soon, he won't be able to finish school. The teacher asked what his circle is. Theo answered, still second. The teacher sighed and said, 5 years have passed, and he still hasn't made it past the second round. Then the teacher apologized and took something out of the drawer. Theo's last chance, the teacher gave Theo a letter. People either sympathize with Theo or ridicule him. After all, he never had a talent for magic. This was Theo's last chance to prove himself. Countless ridicule, that's what our hero heard all the time. Sympathy, ridicule, pity, and many other unpleasant feelings. He had come too far to just run away. All the time he walked this path, it seemed thorny to him. The moment you decide to give up, the road ahead of you becomes incomprehensible. Theo became a man who had to face a life full of obstacles. All he could do now was continue studying. He read these books for 5 years. This library was a safe place for Theo. He came here to relieve stress. He loved books. That's why he was here all the time. But today he noticed something. Theo has read these books several times, but this is the first time he has seen this one. He just wanted to know what kind of book it was, how she transformed and enveloped Theo. Theo had already decided that he was finished, but he was alive. Suddenly Theo heard someone calling him. But when he opened his eyes, he saw no one, and decided that it was a hallucination. The voice declared that this was not a hallucination and ordered me to look at my hand. Theo reluctantly turned his hand and saw it. Panic washed over Theo and he screamed. The thing on his hand, she said, was too early to be surprised. What only frightened Theo more was that the thing suddenly made a statement. It was time to eat. His long tongue flew to the book. Theo ordered the thing to stop. This didn't help, and asking didn't help either. And it was time for harsh methods. Theo tried to tear the thing off his hand, but to no avail. Theo suddenly felt dizzy. He fell down, thinking the thing had hit him on the head. All these years, Theo has been trying to improve his magical abilities, but all in vain. Someone's voice spoke in his head. Reach your hand forward and squeeze it as hard as you can, and cast the lightning summoning spell. By doing this, Theo was actually able to strike with lightning. Waking up from a long sleep, Grimm is very hungry to satisfy his hunger. Books are needed, Theo asked. It was his voice. But Grimm didn't understand what Theo was talking about, which meant the voice in his head belonged to someone else, considering that Theo actually felt a tingling sensation in his hand. This is clearly not a hallucination, but it is difficult to believe that all this is reality. Magic was something he couldn't do, but now he can use it. He was able to use magic, which he had previously been unable to master. Does this mean he can learn new spells? And also his hand just swallowed the book. The words spoken by the voice inside took Theo's breath away. To get magical power, you need to feed him 4 books. Within 10 minutes, he will receive other spells. Theo wanted to talk to the thing, but Grimm said he was hungry. He will answer questions only if he is given something to eat. Well, the thing was lucky. Theo was in the library. Thanks to the mysterious voice, Theo learned a little information. This creature is an ancient grimoire to increase magical power. He needs to satisfy the hunger of the grima. But if he ignores the grima, then it will absorb Theo after digesting the received food. A notification about the acquired skill sounds in Theo's head, and Theo can use it right away, without any practice. But if the book is bad or the content is not clear to Theo, this book won't quench your thirst for makeup. Fortunately, Theo read a lot of books. Theo decided to take full advantage of this. But there is a downside: excessive consumption of skills causes a hellish headache. This is crazy. Theo could have passed out or gone crazy from such pain. Therefore, Theo decided to be more restrained. Still, Theo was glad he had endured the pain. After all, the magic that he had been unable to master for 5 years had become a part of him. Theo asked if Grimm was full, and he replied something like that. Then Theo reminded him of his promise. Grimm asked why he needed his name. Theo admitted that he wasn't that interested. And yet, the makeup keeps its word. It gave its name, Gluttony. Theo was not impressed. Glatt laughed at his reaction. Then Theo asked if he could answer one more question. Glatt already knew what kind of questions Theo had, what kind of voice it was, where it came from. This is how Theo learned that Glatt was unstable, but he himself doesn't know how to deal with it. However, if you feed him, he gets better. Theo has one task: to feed Glatt, and that's it. That grimoire is thousands of years old, so it turns out Glatt is too. Glatt was falling asleep, but Theo had one more question. But for some reason, Theo couldn't choose which one to ask. He doesn't have much time. He needs to hurry. You only need to ask him the most important things. Theo asked what Glatt was. Glatt decided to make fun of him and asked, Will Theo be able to understand his story with his little brain? He might consider it caring, because Theo is stupid. So, he will show Theo his story, before Theo could understand anything. The library began to float. Something appeared before my eyes. And this something was huge. It began to drag Theo somewhere. I must admit, this creature was ugly. She dragged Theo to her. And opening her mouth, she touched Theo, his tongue reaching his brain. Memories seemed to come into my head on their own. Having finished his presentation, Glatt released Theo. Then he laughed at him and said, what Theo saw could be considered an answer. It was time for Glatt to go to bed, so he said goodbye to Theo. The form of him that Theo saw now was terrifying. It is simply impossible to describe it in modern language. Apparently he wasn't the first to see this. Theo had a lot of questions. First of all, Glatt has not yet recovered. There is also a kind of guide with him, that voice. Secondly, Glatt wakes up once a day to satisfy his hunger. Thirdly, Glatt can see how much power food can give. Fourth, Glatt can extract power from the food he eats. Finally, regarding the understanding itself, the talented, inferior Theo. A useless gift in learning, a failure of a student. But now, everything is different. It seems like this is the beginning of a new path for Theo. One can only guess how Theo uses his powers. Will he use it for good? Or he is going to take revenge? Two teachers were talking in the greenhouse. Richie asked his friend if he should lose weight, envious of the kids running around. But the teacher said Richie was too old for that. Richie asked why Professor Vince was still at school. After all, his vacation had started. Vin replied that he had work. He thought he had finished all the work, but it turned out that he had not. Richie suspected something and asked, unfinished business. Vin is not connected to that experiment. Vin gave a displeased look and said, walls have ears too. You shouldn't talk about it so casually. Vin was right. Everyone was eavesdropping, and suddenly someone came. And he said that he was looking for the professor. Vin seemed surprised. The man said, and Vin seemed to tense up when he saw him. But he came to ask a couple of questions. Vin asked what kind of questions. Let him ask. The man grinned sharply and asked, that kid, Theodore Miller, is not on the screening list. And this year, why is that? Vin tensed up. Theo was from a family of fallen nobles. Why did they decide to get to him? Are they really so ruthless that they are ready to kick him out? Vin decided to stall for Theo and said he decided to do it later. He reminded that it was his sole responsibility to decide how to deal with students. Then the man laughed nervously and apologized. For getting into the wrong place and leaving, Vin thought. How did such a nasty guy become a professor? For some reason, Vin believed in Theo, and Theo was still in the library, collecting books. With the help of Glatt's power, it has become easier to choose useful books. Just by touching it, Theo gets a brief summary of the book. Glatt can also tell right away whether a book is strong or not. Choosing food has become much easier, remembering the time when he first appeared. Then Theo began to realize that his preferences were constantly changing. He often asks Theo for 3 or more books. But he is also often picky, let's say. Glatt turned out to be quite the gourmet. Theo rummaged through the library to find the best books. But Glatt was always being mischievous and demanding other books. He cursed and ordered Theo. Suddenly he found some book and demanded it. It looks like a real gem. It's genuine, about the Belantes family. Theo didn't think this book was special. But I quickly found out that it was indeed the original. The man who published the book on ballistic magic, Prince Belantes. Alfred Belantes, being a prince and the most powerful battle mage. He was a master of magical battles, and also the best warrior. Despite the fact that this man lived 80 years ago, he mastered great magic, for the knowledge of which they were ready to give huge amounts of money. The magic used was a magic arrow. Using only the first circle of magic, he was able to climb to the very top without much effort. That is why he is the only hero of that war. Theo was amazed that such a book was lying here. It's worth bringing it back, but before that, Theo must learn this magic. Glatt also seemed pleased with the book. This book is worthy of starting synchronization. Only Theo asked to say what it meant. How I fell into the world of synchronization. And Theo successfully passed it, and so Theo received a bonus. He was able to travel back in time to the prince's memory. 45 years ago, Theo entered the prince's body. Now it's not Alfred, but Theo at war. The magician said that they were awaiting the prince's instructions. It took Theo a moment to realize where he was. Yes, he was in the prince's mind, but he was just an observer. He couldn't move. Theo, in a sense, was watching a movie. The man said that a prince should not waste his time on trash, but the prince said that he could take command himself. He led the army and the battle began. Alfred reminded that he was not just a prince, he was the leader of an army. Since they have encroached on his head, let them attack. Then Richard came and said that it was not fitting for him to keep the prince waiting. Richard decided to mock Alfred by calling his army cowards. He also insulted Alfred, but he didn't finish. Alfred killed him faster. Other soldiers attacked the prince. It was madness, a whole other level of power. One blow would blow up every enemy, this phenomenal power. It was obviously created through long study of magic and diligent practice. A magic arrow created through the application of hundreds of transformations. Perfect skill, suddenly someone shouted. How dare they? Some fat man was tied up and dragged to the prince. He shouted that he was a marquise, and they couldn't treat him like that. Then the prince got angry and asked, "Is that how it is?" Shouting that the marquis was already a mongrel, that she had lost the rest of her mind. Then the marquise came to his senses and begged the prince to have mercy. But before he could finish speaking, the prince killed the marquis. The prince considered the marquis disgusting. After all, the marquis tried to save his own skin and never once thought about his army. Unexpectedly, the prince turned to the observer, that is, Theo. He said that Theo should return immediately, and yet, he gave Theo advice that if he wanted to become a magician, he had to fight with all his might. He also warned Theo about something impending. The synchronization ended because the prince somehow noticed Theo. Still, Theo was glad he was able to see the prince fight with his own eyes. After all, Theo was now able to master the prince's magic arrow. Theo was so focused on the battle that he didn't notice that the arrow was already huge. But it was too late. Theo attacked, and I couldn't stop her. An arrow pierced the ceiling. I wonder who will pay for it. This was the first time Theo failed to stop the spell. Still, the prince was a genius, which means this spell wouldn't be so easy to handle. Theo needs to increase his magical power. To master this spell, Theo decided to ask Glatt, just as Glatt woke up. Glatt mocked Theo for not being able to control the spell's power. But Theo was in no mood for jokes. He asked Glatt, how can he increase his magical power? Glatt's reaction was strange. Then Theo asked what he didn't know. But Glatt said Theo needed to be more precise. After all, there are hundreds of thousands of ways to increase your power, and he will only talk about one of them. Then Theo asked for the most effective one, and Glatt unlocked the hidden skill. Now he is able to analyze and consume everything related to magic. Henceforth, after absorbing items imbued with magic, Theo's strength will increase now that Glatt's diet has increased. Which on the one hand is good, but on the other hand not so much. After all, now Glatt's food is scattered all over the academy. Books are much easier to obtain than magical items. And our Theo is not one of the popular guys, so looking for them at the academy is not an option. Then Theo realized that it would be easier to look for objects outside. He asked the professor for help, and Vin helped Theo. Vin gave Theo an exit document and Theo told him how grateful he is for everything the professor does for him. Vin asked if Theo really wanted to become a mage that badly. He considered Theo a very talented guy and was confident that Theo could shine in another. He does not convince him otherwise. He was just curious why Theo wanted to become a magician so badly. Theo replied that he really wanted to be one. His zeal may seem absurd, but it is not, and he will prove it to everyone. The professor realized that Theo had found a loophole. Theo showed the documents, and the man said that Theo should return by 7 in the evening. And so Theo found himself outside 3 years later. During this time, the city has not changed at all. It's a market town, so there are plenty of trinkets here. Theo has already encountered 4 magical artifact shops, but our destination is not there. Theo walked to the outskirts of the city, to the place his friend showed him. In those days, Theo had many friends. As soon as I entered the city, memories began to surface. About the good old days. Theo still thought about his former friends. But since they were traitors who abandoned him, Theo decided to forget about them. Theo finally reached his destination. He walked into the store and greeted the lady. Theo wanted to say what he needed, but Madame interrupted him. Having said that, the principle of self-service is in force here. As expected, it seems she's just too lazy to explain. There is everything here, from cursed goods to consumer goods. It's time to release Glatt. He knows better what he wants to eat. Glatt immediately began to analyze all the goods. In addition to information about the product, Theo will find out where they have already been used. This place is almost entirely made up of consumer goods. Still, there are some worthwhile items here. Theo packed a bag of things, which surprised Madame. She demanded 2 gold coins, but Theo only laughed. And he said he could buy the same thing for 20 pieces of silver at the dump. Miss said he could go there, but Theo said he was not an ordinary customer. Then Miss gave him a task if he guesses what she has in her hands. She'll give you a discount. She didn't know Theo had Glatt. And he told Theo that it was a pipe. Instead of tobacco, there was mana. Miss smirked and called Theo an appraiser. Theo acted tough, but he was actually very nervous. Miss admitted that Theo interested her, and she asked why the appraiser came to her shop. Theo replied that he was here to make a small deal. He will evaluate items for her, and in return receive consumer goods. Miss doubted Theo's honesty. Theo said the terms were beneficial to her. Miss said they were not beneficial to him. She didn't understand why he would suggest something like that, and sweet talk won't convince her. No one from the Appraisers Guild suggested such a thing. But if he is honest, then let him convince her with a sensible answer. To prove that his words are not a lie, let him name the true reason. Theo didn't like this at all. He couldn't reveal Glatt's existence. But he can't lie either. He needs to find a loophole. Miss said, if you have nothing to answer, let them leave. But Theo decided to choose a forced contract. Miss sighed and took out the scroll. Then she said she asked to tell her the reason. And he wasn't even going to open his mouth, but since he was so determined. Miss asked Theo to state his name. Theo did. Then she gave her name, Connie, and she signed the same terms of the contract. Theo asked me to add something. Nothing special. He just wants her to include a clause about complete confidentiality. Connie didn't mind that Theo wanted to keep everything a secret. She finished writing and handed the document to Theo. They left their fingerprints, and the agreement came into force. Now the deal of their lives was on the line. Theo picked up the bag. Theo forgot to take the stroller with him, so he'll have to carry everything on his own. And he needs to hurry. It's already evening. The gates were about to close. Theo jumped into the academy at the last minute. Theo returned to his room and finally threw the bag on the floor. It's time to feed Glatt, he woke him up. Glatt was happy with the food, but Theo's smell bothered him. Theo got angry and told Glatt not to think about it. After all, today Glatt's diet is a little different. Glatt ate the necklace. It took him 3 minutes to digest. Penetrating information feels different. It's as if it's being gently poured in. The food has been digested. The level of mastery of the magical power of the first circle is lubrication. The power inside Theo seemed to be quietly boiling. Mana capacity also increases slightly. There is a feeling as if something slimy is permeating it from the inside. Glatt swallowed everything Theo took from the shop in a flash. The second circle inside became so full that Theo could no longer contain the force, because of which the heart began to swell. Theo concentrated, and he waited for a new circle. He drew the threads of the world tree to create a connection of circles. The long winter holidays are about to come to an end. As the time for school to open approached, the students gradually arrived with their luggage. Meanwhile, our hero was training hard. After all, you need to strengthen your body to more easily cope with magic. 2 months flew by for Theo. He hadn't thought about it before. But when Theo synchronized with the prince, a healthy body means a clear mind. The first few days, it was such a drag to get up for training. But day by day, he began to notice changes in his body. The third circle was the result after absorbing 40 artifacts. After so many years, Theo caught up with the other students. Theo seemed to have overdone it. He was shaking all over. Thanks to his sensitivity, Theo can hear sounds from a great distance. So now 3 students approach him. The guy said that Theo took his place. Their school's reputation is suffering because of Theo. Teenage ulcers haunted Theo. The boy wanted to attack Theo, but instead he attacked himself. It was all Theo. He used dispersal. The boy has the same skills as Theo, but at the same time, I couldn't even feel any resistance. It was worth training. Theo has 1 week left to deal with these types. A week later, chemistry class. The professor talked about magical power, and that one inaccuracy in the formula could kill the guys. But the children didn't listen, so the professor decided to ask a question. She chose Theo and asked, why the full moon pill combination can be poisonous. Theo replied, it's all because of the poisonous petals. If the poison is not purified during mixing, the poison will be maximized. The professor said that Theo answers like this, as if everyone should know this, which is why it bothers them. She asked Theo to come down and show her the correct method of making it. Well, it looks like she's making fun of Theo, but Theo agreed to prepare the potion. There was a reason why Gemini disliked Theo 2 years ago. Theo hurt her feelings by questioning her teaching methods. Since then, Gemini disliked Theo. Theo is a poor student from the lower classes. So for many, Theo is an easy target for venting their anger. But this is an academy. You have to study here. That's what Theo did. He made a potion. The color was perfect, so Theo did everything right. What no one expected, Gemini asked how Theo did it. Theo chuckled and reminded that the formula had been changed 2 years ago. Only Gemini didn't change anything. Gemini wasn't the only one who bullied Theo. Others also gave Theo tests. They wanted to humiliate Theo, but Theo did everything they asked. For that, Theo tested everything he had learned. Theo was only dissatisfied with his own sensitivity, but compared to others, he was on top. Little by little, people's opinions about Theo began to change. They wanted to recruit him into their circles. The guy said that Theo gets bullied less, which pisses him off. He also attacked Johnny, and then Johnny got angry, and Johnny planned to take revenge. Tomorrow in a duel, he planned to kill Theo. Vin explained that discipline is important in duels. War haunts them. The demand for magicians is always high. A 4th-tier mage, capable of taking down 100 soldiers at once. On the battlefield, mages are important strategic weapons, but not everyone can reach the standards of a battle mage. If they become battle mages, the king himself will reward them. Even in times of peace, evil exists. That's why duels are necessary. The first rule is no artifacts. Second, you cannot attack until the start of the duel is announced. Third, the order of the match cannot be changed arbitrarily. If someone broke one rule, he will throw him out of the academy. The classroom duel is about to begin. The students he will now name are asked to come forward. They can refuse, but it does not guarantee that there will be no assessments. In the first round, number 1 will be Carter, and number 2, Theodore Miller. Carter was Johnny's brother, and it looks like he's going to avenge his brother. He started with mockery, calling Theo an eternal repeater, repeating that Theo is the worst student. But Theo had heard this so many times that he didn't care. Besides, Theo is not that loser anymore. It's time to show everyone that. Vin told Carter to save his fire for the fight. The purpose of this lesson is to learn correct positioning in combat. The start of the duel will be decided by a coin toss. Once the coin decides who attacks, they can immediately begin the duel. Theo will have to defend and Carter will have to attack. Without thinking twice, Carter attacked with a lightning bolt. Apparently, Carter was counting on a quick victory, because he considered Theo a loser. Aside from this attack, Carter's shield is second to none in terms of durability. But Theo was glad. Before he couldn't use even the slightest spell. And now he can not only use magic, but also think about victory. If Carter continues to look down on Theo, then soon Theo will bring him to his knees. It was Theo's turn to attack, and he was ready to take out all his anger on Carter. Theo attacked with a fire blast, but Carter was confident in himself. He believed that Theo would not destroy his shield. However, he did not expect such power. Carter was furious, and thought that Theo would not be able to attack like that again. But Theo didn't need that. Carter's shield was already crumbling. Theo grouped all the shots in one spot, to burn through his shield. Now Carter was worried. He didn't know what to do. He knew that aiming at objects was easy, but changing the trajectory was so easy. Not everyone is capable of this, and Carter was furious that a loser like Theo could do this. So he decided to defeat Theo with all his strength. He created a fireball. Then Theo created a triangular pyramidal shield. If the attack is split into parts, due to the shape of the shield, this will neutralize its effect. The explosion was so big that smoke filled the entire hall, and Theo emerged from the smoke unharmed. Carter didn't expect Theo to survive an attack like that. It's Theo's turn again. It's all over. Carter screamed that he needed time to recover. Theo advised Carter to never underestimate his opponent. And he attacked Carter. Carter's shield was of no help. After a moment of silence, the students screamed. Theo had overpowered Carter. There was no point in making excuses. Carter was furious. Standing up, he declared that he would not accept defeat. From a sudden attack that happened at the moment when he was recovering, he demands a rematch if he can stop his attack. Then he will immediately accept his defeat. Carter quietly took out some kind of artifact. Vin believed Carter's defeat was a surprise. Word of this battle will spread quickly. This will be a huge blow to his family's reputation. For him, this is a duel for his reputation, the goal of which is to crush his opponent. Vin noticed the artifact and he should have thrown him out of the academy, but he saw the determination in Theo's eyes. So Vin decided not to interfere. And Carter used the artifact. Form, flaming projectiles, fiery shell. Carter decided that Theo would not be able to withstand the attack. But Theo just called Carter an idiot, and Carter decided it was a bluff. Theo joked that Carter needed the artifact to defeat a student on the verge of expulsion. And he added, "Stop wasting time, let him shoot." Carter said whether he won or not was irrelevant. He doesn't care about the punishment, he'll still kill Theo. Carter uses fourth circle magic, so the shield won't be enough. But Carter ignores the very nature of magic. Carter had only himself to blame for thinking Theo would only use the shield. Theo created a huge earthen dome. Carter attacked. The explosion was colossal. People decided that Theo was finished. Carter was already celebrating his victory. But Carter's reputation is definitely ruined. Theo learned the nature of magic during his first year of study. The fight is over. Time for payback. The professor gave his student a slap. Carter said he could explain everything, but Vin first talked about banning artifacts. Vin asked if he hadn't warned about this, and Carter dared to disobey him. Did Carter really think he hadn't noticed anything? Carter said he couldn't do otherwise. His family's honor was at stake. Vin asked, and did he manage to defend his honor? Of course not. Carter should come to see him after class. He calls a council to decide on his expulsion. He also waits for Theo after school at his place. Sometime later, Theo came to the professor. Theo was nervous. He didn't understand why Vin called him. Maybe because of the abnormal surge in his abilities. Vin knows Theo well, so it's understandable that he had questions. Probably, many people have asked this question. Theo stood in front of the door and couldn't get into the office. Glatt will probably be branded a black magician, and if he is discovered, Theo will not be able to escape anywhere. However, this does not change anything one way or another. The conversation is inevitable. He knocked and, introducing himself, entered the office. Vin had just returned from the council and asked Theo to sit down. He said it didn't look like Theo was injured, which made Vin happy. Vin continued to talk about Carter and the question of his expulsion. As if nothing strange had happened, Vin held out the artifact and said, "This is the main topic of conversation." Roaring Flame, Carter's artifact that Vin took from him. Vin explained that Horace's soul was kept in it. Firewolf, it absorbs the user's mana and converts it into flames. This is an apology. Theo should just accept it, because this artifact is very rare. And now the artifact belongs to Theo. Or Theo might not accept it and reject Carter's apology. Then Vin will throw Carter out. Since this is how things are, Theo decided to take the artifact. Since this is how things are. Vin suddenly said that from now on, this matter concerns Vin personally. All these 6 years he was with Theo. After the holidays, Theo became different. He doesn't have to tell if he doesn't want to. He doesn't think of Theo as a scoundrel who uses dirty methods. But if Theo considers him his mentor, then maybe he will share. Theo thought he was at a crossroads. Everyone would find out about Glatt, and it was also worth telling about those books that Glatt ate. Still, Theo decided to share with Vin, despite all the risks. Theo trusted the professor and showed his hand. Vin got a little nervous and asked what the hell it was, but Theo told him not to be scared. He just wants Vin to look at it. Theo woke Glatt up to have lunch. Glatt woke up and asked what was needed. The professor was shocked and horrified. He asked what the hell was going on. Theo remembered that very conversation, about his perseverance and knowledge. When he heard these words, something immediately clicked in Theo's head. At the academy, where everyone was his enemy, Vin was someone Theo could trust because he never looked down on him. Glatt absorbed a high-level artifact. This pendant has been passed down through the Carter family for generations. The contract with him is fulfilled through the use of the owner's blood. Vin looked at this and asked Theo how to explain this. Theo told everything about Glatt, and Vin asked, so this is a grimoire of gluttony. He quickly realized what Glatt could do. But as a professor, he is unhappy that Theo is feeding him library books. Although he understands that it was a matter of life and death for Theo. Theo asked if he could ask a question, but Vin already knew what Theo wanted to ask. Why, he's not so interested in his grimoire, is he? Vin explained that Theo wouldn't be able to understand this unless he majored in archaeology. The grimoire is useless to mages like him. It is called a grimoire, but it does not have the form of a book. It chooses its owner itself. And if Vin kills the owner, he will immediately become a victim of revenge, like the others. There is also no way to transfer it to someone else. In any case, he is grateful that Theo shared with him, and to strengthen trust between them, he cast the vow of silence. Vin made a vow to keep what Theo told him a secret. Theo didn't expect this at all. I wonder why Vin is so eager to help Theo. Vin finished and a mark appeared on his hand. It means he's keeping Theo's secret a secret. Vin said he was counting on Theo. Theo was grateful for the support. A week later, after that conversation, nothing special happened. But now, Theo must report on all the books he feeds to Glatt. Thanks to Vin, Theo doesn't have to worry about the consequences. Vin also talked a little about Miss, and now Theo can't go to the black market. Glatt still hasn't recovered. Theo had time to think about many things in the few minutes he walked. He arrived on time and knocked on the doors of the research campus. Theo came in and asked, "Professor, what is moving?" Vin asked Theo to sit down. He wanted to show him something. Theo recognized the seal of the Kingdom of Meltor. This is an invitation to a magical competition. Vin asked if Theo understood what he was hinting at. He participates in competitions and can take one assistant with him, and he invites Theo to go with him. Theo didn't expect this, but he agreed. Vin filled out the paperwork, and if even one little thing was wrong, they wouldn't have been allowed in. Theo asked why they were so meticulous. Vin replied that they were so meticulous because of the spies. Vin asked if Theo knew why he chose him. Theo didn't know what to answer, Vin said. Theo was clearly familiar with the phrase, ignorance is bliss. He talks about things that even if Theo knows, he should forget them. Vin handed over the Academy's charter and began to read the sections in charter. If a student takes third place in a magic competition, then he gets the right to finish the Academy at any time he wishes. Theo is definitely bored here, right? He has already read all the books in the library. His theoretical knowledge is in no way inferior to all the professors here. Theo has already reached the third round, but he can't get to the fourth here. His presence here was ambiguous. Theo was still unsure. Vin said that all these people see Theo as nothing but a nuisance. They live for duty and authority. They will never regret their actions. For Theo, it is better to be where they are not. Vin is also planning to go to the capital. Theo has a chance to move to a better place. That's why Vin wants to take Theo with him. Theo didn't mind, but he was worried that he wouldn't be able to win. Vin said that under normal circumstances, this would be impossible. But Theo has an ace up his sleeve. Theo asked. Vin is talking about the combat magic division. Vin answered, "That's right. Warm-up matches are for professors, and the assistants will be students like Theo. If Vin is with Theo, then there is a chance of winning," Theo thought. Theo also has the Carter family's ability. There is also Alfred's ability. So Theo, after thinking for a bit, decided to give it a try and agreed to go with him. Vin also bought the original book for Glatt to devour. The search process is not difficult, but the classification process took a long time. It is easy to distinguish between the original and the fake, but the process of classifying the product took a lot of time. Theo asked if he could personally evaluate the book. Introduction to Elemental Magic, a book about spiritualism. The process of making a contract with an elemental spirit is described. Book class, rare. Theo will gain the skill of elemental control. An incredible opportunity for Theo. It's surprising that Vin gave Theo such a valuable book. There are only 2 copies. Vin promised to do everything to get the second book for him. And he said that they were leaving in 3 days, so Theo should get ready. Theo quickly ran into the room because Glatt was hungry, and he threatened to eat Theo if he didn't feed him right away. Glatt began to eat less, but food became more expensive. The methods by which he demands it remain the same. Glatt also started asking for more and more food. It's annoying, but there's no time to think about it. Theo fed Glad a book, An Introduction to Elemental Magic. Theo finally mastered elemental magic, an ability that is not so easy to master. But suddenly synchronization was announced. The connection with Myrdal, the elemental mage, has begun. Theo was transported again to a very strange and cold place. He fell right next to the magician but was unconscious. Theo woke up a little later and thought that this had never happened before. He crouched down on the ground. Theo was trapped in ice. The magician waited all this time for Theo to wake up. The roof collapsed, and he thought the heavens had opened up. And he was just a boy. Theo finally realized who was standing in front of him. The old man realized that Theo knew who he was. Theo asked if this was his isolated enclave. Myrdal answered, "It is true. Once upon a time, they called this place the place of the dispossessed. They used the place as a weapon of war, a place where souls remain. The boy came to such a place, he is special." Theo admitted that he was dragged here. The old man asked, "So some force brought him here?" Theo admitted that this time things were different. He was summoned for the first time. There is something. But it is unlikely that Myrdal will understand it. Myrdal said the guy has plenty of his own problems. Before Theo arrived here, everything here resonated. Someone was planning to sneak in here with Theo. Myrdal wanted to check something. He asked Theo to look into his eyes. He saw no passion in Theo's eyes. He doesn't like playing with fire, and challenging people is the worst choice for Theo. There will be fire, and it is not free like the wind, and not flexible like water. Overall, Theo is not an interesting person. But Theo knows what perseverance is. Theo asked what he wanted to say. The monster laughed. Myrdal asked. Theo didn't understand anything from the reaction of the guy behind him. Theo knows about patience better than anyone. He is stoic. Theo is most like the earth. Theo is sincere but cruel. He is the type of person that he calls strong. Theo looked at the baby with displeasure, and he asked if this little one was the spirit of the earth. The little girl waved to Theo, and he could no longer be angry. Her name is Mira, one of the forgotten ancient spirits of the earth. Theo asked if she was too small. Myrdal answered, "Don't judge a spirit by its appearance." Theo made a pact with her. If Theo grows up successfully, he will be able to see her true self. Theo said he needed to go back. Myrdal said that a cup of soup won't do any harm. Just when Theo wanted to eat, he was dragged back. And this did not surprise Myrdal. He was eager to see how and what would happen next. The fact that Theo found him was all because of the power in his left hand, the kind he had seen before. Theo tried to come to his senses. Mira, the spirit of the earth, looked like a child. When she summoned him, she looked like a queen. Magic tournament of the kingdom of Meltor. With Mira, he has a chance. 3 days later at the gates of the academy. Besides all this, books are the main problem for Glatt. Theo didn't take the essentials. It's all because the books took up all the space. Vin asked Theo why he needed all this. Theo replied that he took the bare essentials. All he can say is that there is food there for Glatt. Vin knew this would happen, so he prepared. The artifact is named Bottomless Pocket. The sight of the artifact frightened Theo. Vin said that the appearance is not important. The main thing is comfort. But the backpack couldn't swallow the artifact. The guys came to Bergen. Theo said, only 9 days until the competition. He knows it will take a month to get to Manavila. Vin said Theo didn't have to worry. They're not the only people who need to get there on time. Theo asked. He was talking about the traders. There is a dangerous route, but safety can be bought. Vin chose a dangerous path. Theo was worried about his wallet. They came to the merchants. Anna Farrell was glad to see Vin. She jumped on him. Theo's shock was understandable. Vin looks confused. Anna finally noticed Theo and asked who he was. Vin introduced them to each other. Since Anna's father is not here, she is in charge. A couple of days ago, Dad ran away with a fishing rod. Leaving a note, "I'll return home in 2 months. But Anna is here, so everything is fine with the guild." Vin asked where their cart was. Anna's flirting picked up speed again. She was hinting at a night together. But nothing worked out. She has work. The man said that Vin's cart was in the 3rd compartment. Vin asked Theo to go to the cart. The carriage was luxurious. It's all thanks to magic. Vin was exhausted and asked how Theo was. Theo replied, Vin had plenty to be tired of, but not him. Vin wanted to ask Theo something. Which element did Theo choose? Theo was a little worried because Vin seemed more emotional than ever. He shows his eyes and now he looks more human. But it's all thanks to him, so Theo decided to show his strength. Theo asked Mira to leave. Vin immediately realized that she was an ancient elemental. He wanted to talk to her, but Theo explained that she was still a child. Vin asked Theo if he knew the difference about ordinary and ancient elementals. The difference lies in the presence or absence of self-awareness in them. Communication. There are many examples of elementals communicating like robots, even being of a high level. But having the opportunity to communicate and behave as she wishes are slightly different things. Usually, elements are deprived of freedom. But Mira retains her will, even with a contract. One way or another, the chances of its development are very high. Ancient elementals evolve along with their master. Vin said that was enough for today. Better get some sleep, they're leaving soon. Crows flew across the endless sky. Each of them was holding some kind of ball. Throwing them down, these balls blew up all the carts. Enemy attack. People were attacked by monsters. Theo woke up, but the professor was not there. And when he came out, he saw a fire. Theo realized that they were being attacked by monsters. Vin apparently disappeared due to the battle. He felt evil energy and called Mira. He asked her to go underground so that he could find out what's going on around, but it has a limit on how much it can visualize. Also, if he manages to detect the enemy can see him too. These turned out to be not simple monsters but elite goblins. They have equipment. As expected, Theo was quickly found and they were already running towards him. Goblins have learned to use magic to move underground. The goblin shot at Theo, but he managed to avoid the arrow. But he rolled straight to the feet of the enemy. This time Mira saved him. She created spikes from the earth, protecting Theo. But she lost all her energy, and there were still a lot of monsters, and they said something to Theo in their language. Theo had to fight the monster one-on-one. But suddenly the monster spoke in the language of people. He asked Theo. The boy is the same magician as the one they caught earlier. Unlike those magicians, the boy looks quite frail. Then Theo noticed that this monster's armor was different from the others. So, he is the leader of these monsters. Theo did not know about the enemy's fighting skills. Therefore, I couldn't attack mindlessly, this wouldn't achieve anything. But he has an ace up his sleeve. Theo summoned the eyes and just in time. Just as the enemy attacked, Theo disappeared from sight. Theo again managed to escape death with the help of assistants. It's time to use the Prince Albert technique. He didn't want to drag out the battle. Lightning flew at the monster and the explosion was incredible. So Theo thought that this would be enough to win. But the enemy appeared behind him. It seemed he had used teleportation magic. Laughing at Theo and calling him trash, the enemy hit him. Theo rolled head over heels on the ground. The enemy approached him and asked, "That's all he can do. He still has some strength. He can still entertain himself a little more." Theo asked how the hobgoblin spoke human. "And also to use magic," the enemy replied, "because of the slaves. They acquired a slave mage who trained them. The goblins already sensed mana, so it was easy. So they learned magic, and threw that magician to be torn apart by the goblins. Bastards, they killed the poor thing, even though she helped them." This also angered Theo. The enemy said that Theo should not think about this, because the same thing would happen to him. They wanted to make a slave out of Theo, so that he could later become food for the goblins. But Theo is not one to give up. He declared that he would kill the chief and his henchmen as many as he could. The creatures just burst out laughing, shouting that he was already dying. Theo said that he had time to rest and accumulate some mana. "He's not gonna die," Theo said and attacked. The flash was so bright that it blinded the enemies. Theo has something that can destroy anyone, and Theo will show it to them. Theo killed not only the leader, but everyone. The creatures managed to anger Theo, and Theo was ready to kill, and he did it very well. He got so worked up that even Vin heard Theo's battle. So Vin asked Anna what the situation was. "They lost contact with the cart," Anna replied. Vina was disturbed by this noise in the distance. So he decided to check what was going on there and asked Anna to take care of everything here. And Theo was already at his limit. Our Theo couldn't even move. It looks like this really is the end. But the leader of the monsters stood before him, and he told Theo to get up. He was angry that Theo killed his leader, and that's why he wanted revenge. Theo asked what he planned to do with it. The monster said, his blood boiling at the sight of the one who killed his leader. Suddenly the earth shook and surrounded him. But the creature believed that human magicians could only use cheap tricks. However, Theo had not yet recovered, so it was not he who used this magic. Theo turned around and saw that it was Mira doing it. The baby has accumulated mana for this. Then Theo only had one thing left to do to support her. He stood up and prepared to attack. Theo said that since the chief wanted it that way, he would send the chief to that leader. Since he missed him so much, the blow was so strong that it broke the creature's sword. But even this was not enough. This blow should have pierced the monster through and through. But he is alive, and the creature attacked Theo. Theo doesn't even have enough mana to protect himself. What can we say about the attack? In simple terms, Theo is finished. The creature wanted to throw Theo to the ground, but he used levitation. To avoid being hit, he decided to run away from the enemy until mana recovered. But the enemy was no slouch either. The creature used throwing weapons. So the escape plan failed. The monster can attack even from a distance. Theo has no time to dodge, and he won't have time to dodge. Theo wondered if he was really going to die like this, at the hands of this creature. Glatt added insult to injury by asking, "His time has come, and he will eventually die a nobody." Theo didn't want to die as a nobody even more. Theo created an earthen dome, but it cost him his last strength, and the small amount of mana made the dome weak. Theo decided to shoot lightning again, and this time Theo was able to shoot the monster. But it looks like Theo has run out of steam. After all, the enemy was still standing on its feet. Even though Theo hit him right in the face, the enemy said the boy fought well, but he is the true leader. At that moment, Vin touched the enemy, and Vin was beside himself with rage. He simply burned the enemy in a second, and he raised Theo, who was dissatisfied with his battle. But Vin supported him, and he advised looking forward. Look not at the mistakes, but at the people Theo saved. A little later, the mercenaries fought fiercely with the goblins, and Vin watched them from the cart and said that troll blood was used for some potions. Mercenaries work so hard for money. Theo asked if he could help them, but Vin said that was the job of mercenaries, and that burning those trolls would only add to their problems. Suddenly my wife appeared and asked what was that gloomy look. Anna praised her husband for the battle, but Vin said that he wouldn't come out, no matter how much she praised him. And Anna turned her attention to Theo, and she said she heard that Theo defeated the leader of the monsters. Theo explained, laughing nervously, that it was Vin. But Vin himself was not against this rumor. Theo laughed awkwardly when Vin said that Theo had done most of the work himself. Anna was upset by the ignoring and she demanded to look at her. She said that she had prepared a gift for them. Vin asked what it was. Anna replied that she didn't understand it herself, but she heard that magicians are actively looking for it because the number of copies is limited. Vin said they couldn't accept the expensive gift, but Anna admitted that all this was just an excuse. As she said, her father had prepared everything carefully, including this gift. Vin decided that the guild wanted to strengthen their relationship. He agreed to take it. Anna was happy, and she praised her husband. Then the guys started their journey again. Theo asked, "Vin already knows what kind of crystal it is," Vin answered, and Theo quickly realized that it was simply an unusual crystal. Plants that absorb the blood of monsters. Occasionally they create crystals, a monstrous berry. Nobody figured out how to use it, but the day they realize this may come soon. And it's better to have a crystal in stock. And here is the magical headquarters, the capital. 4 towers were erected within the city limits. Each tower is painted in the color of its symbolic element. Among them there is a tower that trains battle mages. It turns out that Vin belongs to the Red Tower. Vin wanted to go straight to the academy, but during the tournament the city is overcrowded with people, so the queue for the tournament was huge. But Vin said they didn't have to stand in line. Anna noticed that her husband had already trudged forward without her, and she said how low it was of him to take her with him. Vin said the invitation was for 2 people, and he looked very happy. As they ran away in haste, they showed their invitations to the guards. The last time Vin was here 7 years ago, the invitations were carefully checked, and then the guys were let in. Theo noted that it wasn't that easy to get in here. They would definitely be let in, but Vin wasn't worried and told Theo to breathe out. Despite the high status of this place, the guys were allowed in without any problems. The document check began again. "There is one thing left to clarify," the man asked. "A 4th-round student. Although this is just a formality, you can simply write that this is so." He was used to everything being on the 4th, but Vin said he was on the 3rd round, and this alarmed the civil servant. He reminded that all the other students were in the 4th circle. Suddenly an unknown man said, "It's just a number." He is confident that the boy will cope somehow. Vin didn't know who it was, but he was already irritating him. The man said he was a private from the Blue Tower. Her name is Lauren, and the tournament rules have been slightly changed. All students receive tokens as proof of their participation. Theo was also given a token, 132nd, his number. Participants put all their medals on the line to prove their strength. The winner takes all the medals. Whoever has more wins. Vin noted that this is essentially a ladder tournament and they can drag on for weeks. That's why he wanted to ask something. What if someone picks weak opponents for themselves? To earn medals, or having earned medals, the participant will refuse duels. But Lauren chuckled, and he said, "Good question." He called Mia. "I would like to introduce my best student and daughter, Vika Gluko." Mia said hello, and Lauren said, as Vin had said, the tournaments lasted for weeks. That's why they added a new rule this year. Vin asked us not to drag it out and say it straight away. The new rule is that students who have 1 medal, they can't refuse a duel, Lauren said. He can give Theo time to prepare. The date and time of the duel are chosen by the host party. Vin asked what Theo wanted to do. Then Theo asked if that was all for today. But then Vin said that they had a table in the Imperial Courtyard. Theo wouldn't mind eating there once, so he wanted to finish the tournament as quickly as possible. He confidently declared that the duel would take place now. The Pentarium is a universal tournament arena that has served as a student tournament venue for years. Divided into separate sectors, it turns into 5 independent arenas. The main hall, which will only open on the last day, a girl came out and asked to attach crystals to clothes. These are protective crystals. It blocks up to 3 attacks. Once the crystal is destroyed, you lose. Theo asked if he was expensive. The girl answered, "No, they are one-time use items and only cost a couple of gold." Theo thought it was a waste, and Mia asked if he wasn't a nobleman. What kind of questions were those? The guys started arguing, but the girl asked them to save their strength for the tournament. In the left corner is Theo, in the right is Mia. The duel has begun. Mia created ice arrows and attacked. Theo decided to use the blast wave to block the attack. Then he connected 3 elements at once, and attacked Mia. 2 attempts left. Theo asked confidently if he should tone it down. Mia said there wasn't a drop of a nobleman's politeness in him. She used an arc-shaped shield. Theo called Mira, and she grabbed Mia, and again he attacked Mia with lightning. He seemed a little disappointed that he was winning so easily. Mia is a good sorceress, but she has no talent. All Mia needs is a little discipline, but her surroundings simply spoiled her. Theo had been humiliated all his life, and he had also been in real combat. And Mia's dad spoiled her too much and never gave her real lessons. She didn't even know what to do in a real fight. What's strange is that she wasn't prepared for battle at all. An awkward conversation took place between the guys, and after that the duel began again. But Theo complained that she was slow. Mia was able to break through Theo's shields, but she couldn't stay on her feet and fell. By all rights, the main character won. After the battle, Lauren calmed Mia down, and in general, started pampering her again. The girl congratulated Theo and gave him 4 medals. Theo returned to Vin satisfied. Vin asked, "And how was he?" Theo answered, "Bored." Vin reminded that Theo had Albert's lightning. Theo got the prince's lightning by cheating. And Theo also has combat experience, which he had quite recently. He was fighting monsters when Thor came up to him. Vin became nervous and asked what such a busy man was doing here. Thor laughed and patted Vin on the shoulder, who yelled at Thor not to do that. He was in pain, and Thor then asked to be introduced to his student. Vin reluctantly introduced Theo to the man. Thor said that Theo looks like an innocent child, but then he approached him and said that it looked like he had gone through a lot of difficulties. "We found him on the battlefield, to be honest. It's hard to call Theo a child." Theo asked Vin who he was anyway. Vin explained that Thor's name was Hadrian, and he was the Lord of the Blue Tower. In the 4 main towers that protect the kingdom, the mages who belong to them are awarded one of 5 ranks. Newcomers who have just recently joined the tower are temporarily left without a rank. Those who already have a track record and experience are rank and file, like that Lauren. Talented magicians with many achievements are the highest, like Vin. The most experienced and long-standing members of the order are the captains, and finally the wisest rulers' lords. So it turns out that Thor is one of the 4 most powerful magicians, and Theo met with the Lord. Then he got nervous, and he introduced himself properly. Thor laughed, and Vin asked, "Adrian is here for a reason." Thor replied that he was in such a hurry. Maybe he just wanted to see Vin, since he hadn't seen him for a long time. And then Vin returned to the capital, and not alone, so he was curious who Vin came with. It seemed the rumors had already spread. Thor continued to look at Theo, and he said that the more he looked at Theo, the more he wanted to take him to himself. Vin asked. Adrian said that he already had a student. Adrian laughed and said there was nothing surprising about it. Vin's apprentice is good, but victory is already determined. Theo heard the winner being announced. The duel was over in 24 seconds. Theo's pomposity quickly vanished when he heard the tournament time. He wondered what kind of monster it was that could win in such a short amount of time. The doors swung open and Sylvia came in. Thor wanted to hug her, but she slipped out of his arms. Then Thor asked her to stay so he could introduce her. He said this heartless child was Sylvia, the student he raised himself. Sylvia said hello, but Theo didn't respond. His perception, strengthened by experience, speaks to him that this is an innocent-looking girl, much stronger than that goblin leader, so Theo was scared. Thor asked Theo what he thought about going into the arena with her. But Theo is not a fool who rushes into battle. He understood that at this level, he would simply disgrace himself. So Theo politely declined the duel. Thor said it was somehow sad, but still accepted his refusal. Sylvia bowed and they left. Theo clicked his tongue in displeasure and turned away without saying goodbye to them. Vin also thought that Sylvia was best avoided. Theo seemed to be angry that he wasn't as strong as her. She's the type of magician he admires. That's why he wants to take on this challenge. Vin, though, thought it was better to simply avoid Sylvia. However, if Theo wants, he will accept his student's wish. But first, he suggested going to the artifact shops to gain more strength. The girl was bored in her shop. No one had come in all day. Despite the influx of tourists, her shop was empty. She was feeling sorry for herself when suddenly the doors swung open. Vin and Theo walked into the shop, and Vin asked to show them the best goods. And he added that the price doesn't matter. The girl showed the product. But Vin was not happy with them. He repeated that price did not matter. The girl repeated that this was the best product in her store. But Vin insisted on a B-rank item. He knew she had a rare item. Then the girl took out what Vin was waiting for. She realized that the high mage was only interested in the best. Glove, armor. Vin asked Theo to do an assessment. Forged from mithril alloy by ancient dwarves, it is capable of reflecting any projectiles flying at the owner. The previous owner could have avoided the hail of arrows, but magic had to be poured into it. This is a brank item of the precious class. When consumed, the effectiveness of defensive spells of the wind element will increase. Theo realized that this armor was on the same level as the roaring flame. The owner said 180 gold, but she could give a discount. Wine didn't need a discount. He paid in bars bearing the kingdom's seal. The girl didn't mind the bars. Then Vin declared that he would take everything. The poor bottomless sack was overflowing. Theo was still in shock from Vin, as was the shop owner. He wondered how much Vin had spent on these artifacts. Vin offered to absorb everything. Theo called Glatt and he said, "Finally, he had been waiting for you to call him," and immediately began to eat. He simply eats artifacts and thus increases his strength. Each item was rare. If he wants to reach the fourth circle, he needs to improve his perception, Theo advised. The hour has finally arrived for what Theo adores. Reading, they sat down to read books. And just like that, he reached the fourth circle. Theo felt his heart slowly boiling. Vin congratulated Theo on his fourth lap. Now he is a full-fledged magician, and he has to go through the same path as Vin. Vin said that the assimilation process was already complete. Now thinking about the fact that Theo will have to eat these valuable items that cost a lot of money, Theo began to doubt. But Vin said he had no doubts. We must use the available means. If of course Theo wants to win against Sylvia. Later, Vin said that from today on they would have special lessons. Sylvia's specialty is water magic, and the main feature of her magic is its versatility. Free transitions from its 3 states of matter are the essence of magic. It has no particular weaknesses. And this is just his opinion, but it is better, of course, to avoid close clashes with Sylvia. He reminded that Thor has a cane, and that Thor's item is not just a cane, and an impressive wooden club. The old man often went to some man from the east and learned how to fight with it. By this point, Thor had become a master of melee weapons. Theo remembered that Sylvia had a baton too. Thinking about this, Theo became scared again. He already imagined how Sylvia would beat him with this club. That's why Vin advised not to approach her. Enough chatter, it's time to start the lesson. Vin attacked Theo and he started to run away. Theo used his shield to block the attack. Vin said he had a pretty good reaction, and he suggested to speed up, and finally the day of the tournament arrived. Theo was exhausted by this time. Vin admitted that he wanted to cancel his participation if Theo had not reached a certain level. Even if he felt ashamed later, Theo asked then, which meant he had done it. Vin responded, more than in the waiting room. Waiting room, Sylvia had 95 medals. She was in first place, and all the students looked at her with displeasure. Thor was unhappy that no one wanted to fight Sylvia, and he said that these young people are completely spineless. Then Theo came up to them and said hello. He looked at Sylvia, who was eating calmly. And he didn't feel the oppressive aura at all. Like then, could it really be because he became stronger? In just a couple of days, Theo had somehow reached her level. It is not for us to judge how fair this is. Theo challenged Sylvia to a duel, and reminded her that she could not refuse. As the main character of the story, he was confident in himself. You could say he's arrogant. Sylvia wasn't worried either, so she accepted the duel. This excited people. The newcomer wanted to fight the winner. The duel began, and people took their places. There were a lot of spectators. A diligent and talented student, Sylvia, emerged. While Theo was gathering his courage, he was worried that so many spectators had come. Apparently, Theo wanted to go out with style. Maybe this is the fight he's aiming for. Vin decided to watch the duel with Thor. Thor was not against it. The professor also looked confident, and Thor noticed this. Thor remembered the Red Tower's motto, "Find a way to win." Vin replied that he didn't expect Thor to remember that. But yes, he did. Thor said it seemed Vin had his own thoughts about Theo, regarding his victory over Sylvia. Vin stated that these were just his guesses, and now all they could do was watch. The girl announced the start of the final tournament. Theo analyzed all of Sylvia's jewels. Her magic casting speed is excessively fast, so if he misses the moment the spell starts, he's finished. Theo summoned a storm wave. He decided to start with fire magic. This magic contains destructive power and speed. She can't be stopped by a simple water element defense. Because of the rising smoke, nothing can be seen. Theo wondered if such a simple spell had really affected her. He read that the lower the temperature of ice, the greater its strength. She erected a barrier to combat the heat, and lower its temperature as much as possible. Sylvia created incredible magic, fourth circle water magic. Water snake, and she pointed it at Theo. Theo barely managed to run back. He thought it was definitely fourth circle magic. He wanted to create a shield, but it was too late. Her magic was strong. Sylvia was already able to touch Theo's shield. But they had only just begun. It would be dangerous if she touched him with this again. Theo realized that there was no point in dodging this attack, and decided to use the momentum from her attack. He decided to hit the root of the problem. That is, Sylvia. But that didn't work either, and Theo ricocheted back. Fire magic and lightning are useless against the power of the water serpent. But Vin still didn't worry. He knew that Theo was persistent, stubborn. His fourth circle fire magic is capable of repelling a water serpent's attack. But he can't just lay out his trump card like that. His backup option remains the same arrow. Somehow Sylvia still hasn't beaten Theo. Although she could have won 3 times already, she still beat others. Theo summoned Mira and she created a wall. And Theo gathered his strength to shoot. The same arrow Prince Albert uses so often. And somehow it worked. After all, he is the main character, so he won. And as the main character, Theo just needs to believe in himself. To defeat the strongest opponent. Sylvia looked at Theo and he trembled. The atmosphere around her changed. Sylvia created amazing magic in a matter of moments. She created so many arrows without a single spell. Theo had to work hard. Using a spell, he created a wall of fire. The 2 spells met and an explosion occurred. Theo couldn't get rid of everything. Somehow Theo managed to create another spell. The ground is covered in ice. It was Sylvia who did it. She accelerates her movements thanks to the ice under her feet. Incredible magic, it's cool. Sylvia attacked with her staff, but Theo jumped back. He remembered not to get too close to her. After this attack, Theo is now confident. Her skills in using weapons are far more dangerous than any magic. Sylvia's technique and speed were incredible. He can't defeat her in close combat. No matter how, he must close the distance between them. Sylvia attacked Theo with her staff. Theo flew back and crashed into the wall. She broke one of the crystals, but a distance appeared between them. Now we just need to keep our distance. Theo noticed that Sylvia was enjoying the battle. Too much talent makes you feel lonely. Sylvia had been bored until now, and because of her talent, her peers avoided her. She smiles, something Thor has never seen before. Sylvia is having fun playing with her friend. The same cannot be said about Theo. He attacked with an arrow again, but Sylvia simply dodged and said, "It starts to repeat itself." Theo continued to run away from her, and he created an earthen spear. Surprise attack will only work once against her. Theo was lost in thought and didn't notice how Sylvia attacked him. She had been reading all his attacks and tactics all this time. How pleased. Theo, although exhausted, was not bored either. Sylvia stopped looking for friends a long time ago. After all, everyone only envied her or hated her, and this wall in the heart was transformed into a curtain. But now she's having fun, and she doesn't want the duel to stop. She really wants to win. Let's talk again about how Theo was disliked, and how could he use magic, only thanks to Glatt. Z-circle magic is levitation. The effect of magic is, in uncontrolled hovering in the air. This is effective against ground attacks. Ice shield, the same one that blocked Theo's attack. Theo can't just vaporize that shield with a brute attack. She attacks head-on, but she also has a trump card. Theo's fatigue seemed to have vanished, and he called Mira. He ordered to show him his power. Theo used Mira's power to stop Sylvia, and then he summoned a double charge of fire. Now it will be decided who will be the winner. Sylvia gathered her strength and used a small force. Two huge spells met again, and so an incredible explosion occurred. After this spell, Theo somehow stood on his feet. Sylvia asked if she could call him Theo. An exhausted Theo nodded. Sylvia invited Theo for a walk and fell, and so the strong, talented student lost to the newcomer Theo, who gained abilities thanks to the parasite. After the battle, Theo was covered in wounds, and he never ceased to admire Sylvia's abilities. Vin praised Theo for his victory, and he asked Theo to get up to change. Now he looked like a villain from a children's cartoon. Vin told him to dress like this until the ceremony. Theo asked what this formality was about. Vin said that His Majesty would arrive. People gathered on the podium. Theo was very nervous and dizzy. People were shouting about something, and Theo asked what was wrong with them. Vin himself didn't understand what was happening. Every person from the upper class has enormous power here. Mistakes are alien to them. If you want to achieve something, don't be nervous. At last the king came. He looked like a villain from Inspector Gadget. Kurt greeted Adrian, and he said that he hadn't seen Adrian for a long time. Thor even felt awkward about it. Kurt stated that he came here to meet his student. He wanted to start the awards ceremony. The man wanted to list everyone, but Crudo asked the man to name only the names of the winners. Then Theo began to get nervous, thinking that the king himself would reward him. Kurt began to award the winners, one by one, and he reached Sylvia. He knew that she was a talented student of Thor. He gave her 100 gold pieces and awarded her the title of honorary baroness. Sylvia accepted the gifts and thanked the king. It was our Theo's turn, who was completely covered in sweat. He also received gold and the title of baron. Kurt also promoted him to the title of viscount. Theo thanked the king for the gifts. Then the king began to talk about how important it was to protect their homeland from the forces of evil, monsters. He seriously ordered not to waste magical power simply. After the lavish ceremony, Vin and Theo went to eat at that same imperial restaurant. Theo filled his belly and said that today was a great day. Vin laughed that Theo could eat so much, and Glatt finally reminded Theo of himself. And Theo fed him. Glatt suddenly said in a normal voice, "I think Theo has a question for him." Theo asked why Glatt had started speaking normally. Glatt answered because he was not that hungry, but Theo did not think that he would always stutter. He gradually regains his abilities as Theo becomes a fourth circle mage. Theo said he wanted to ask about something else. Glatt said he had already answered his question. Theo didn't understand what he meant. Then Glatt replied, "It was a joke, don't people do that?" Theo asked if he could delegate the rights of the question to someone else. Glatt said Theo was the first to ask such a thing, but he didn't mind. The professor wanted to ask a question. Vin asked if Glatt could elaborate on the connection between language and magic. Glatt began to tell stories, long ago, before humanity acquired its knowledge. As a concept, magic already existed, with elves living for centuries, dragons that lived for millennia, and demons that lived in the mind lived for eternity, and also countless other creatures. Human parents without a drop of mana, they stole songs from the elves. The dwarves had blacksmithing skills and also copied the rituals of demons. After 1,000 years, the magic of the circles was complete. Glatt said the professor's question was too vague and he should clarify the issue. Then Vin thought and asked, "Why when using ancient and modern languages?" "Magic is changing," Glatt said. "We'll explain one thing. The process of magic is a way to coax the power that fills the world." The magicians ask her to move. The closer they are to the beginning of the world, the closer the world listens to the magician. This means that the ancient language is stronger. But Vin didn't think so, because he didn't become stronger by using the ancient language. Glatt explained that language is a contradictory medium. Not everyone can pronounce words correctly. The more creatures use it in magic, the stronger he becomes in it. Everything is important in language. But not everyone knows the ancient language well. Glatt asked how Vin studied the language in the past. Vin replied he was studying Balkard. This language was used when magic was at its peak. Speakers of other languages have difficulty reproducing the pronunciation of magicians. This was Vin's mistake. Expression and intonation are very important. One wrong pronunciation, and the world will not understand you. The world also receives requests from magicians. Vin was able to overcome the wall of the sixth circle. Glatt called Theo, who rudely told Glatt to go to bed. Once answered the question. But thanks to Glatt, Theo stopped being a loser. Glatt decided to give advice for development. Tells you about the condition for releasing a hidden function. Gluttony consumes books and gains knowledge. Development, absorption of rare artifacts. And it turns out there is one more function. She's probably stronger than those two. Roy asked why he needed this. Glatt was tired of Theo's nagging. And he said he had no ulterior motives. The only problem is the quality of the food. Stop giving him simple books already. You'll have to fork out some cash. Glatt wants a rare book. This is the only way to develop strength. Theo really wanted this hidden skill. Glatt said it was simple. What can activate it is located near him. Theo asked why exactly that. Later, Theo congratulated Vin on his new circle. Vin replied, "All thanks to Theo." "No, it's thanks to Glatt." And Vin trained for 10 years in vain. Glatt explained everything in a couple of seconds. Theo thought maybe now was the right time to tell that Glatt wants a bottomless pocket. But this bag is very rare. It is still very difficult to make such a bag. This magic is only available to mages of at least the sixth circle. It is illegal to sell it. Vin asked what was eating Theo. Theo lied that he had already forgotten. He decided to look for another way. Vin suddenly remembered that he wanted to ask something. He asked if Theo would become his heir. Vin wants Theo's name to be written into his family tree. "He's being a bit too coddling with Theo," Vin said. "Maybe Theo will think he's shameless." Anyone who wants to benefit from Glatt has no right to refute these thoughts. He had wanted to say these words for a long time. Something like this will not help Theo in any way, but will only burden him. Theo accepted Vin's offer. Vin said that from now on, Theo can call him teacher. Attack magic organized by the Red Tower. But Vin didn't want to go there. Suddenly the guys were called. Millie, the Blue Tower, was looking for them. The Lord wanted to talk to them. Theo noticed people looking at them. Vin told Theo to ignore it. They went up to Adrian and he immediately noticed that Vin has taken things to the next level. Thor laughed and said that he had finally overcome the level. And then he congratulated Vin. Thor said he wanted to ask Vin. 932 and 1106. This is the number of people who tried to dig up information about them. But Thor has already blocked all information about them. Only the king stands above this order. Wine didn't like this at all. In the past, it was precisely because of this lie that Vin left the capital. And now Theo is facing the same threat. Vin, without knowing it, destroyed his mana. Thor said Vin wouldn't be able to change policy even with this power. And Theo was surprised that Thor cooled the entire room with one palm. Vin asked what Adrian would do. Thor answered honestly, he would have destroyed everyone. This is definitely not what they expected. Thor laughed and said it was a joke, and he got the mission directions. But Theo doesn't have a rank yet. Let him sit in his chambers. Or maybe visit his native lands. He hadn't been there for more than 5 years. A cave was recently discovered there and a magician was sent there. We need to find out where he could have disappeared to. This is an ordinary cave, not even a dungeon. Theo asked if they had lost contact with the magician. Thor replied something like that. There's no need to reincarnate, but it would be nice if Theo came back with him. Theo began to seriously think about accepting this assignment. Thor said he was worried. It would be one thing if the magician himself cut off contact with him, but something dangerous could have happened there. Thor added that he had prepared a companion for Theo. Of course it was Sylvia. She is also bothered by politicians, so she also needs to flee the capital. But Theo wasn't very happy about it, and he already wanted to refuse the task. But Thor explained that Sylvia had never been close to her peers, and he wants Sylvia to have social experience. However, Theo was like that too. He rarely interacted with his peers, especially with a girl, so I was no less worried. Thor asked Theo to be more friendly with her, and Theo became even more nervous. Then Thor showed Theo the identification plate. According to the level of difficulty, the performer is given an appropriate reward, and if Thor takes advantage of his position and changes it, then the reward will increase. This level pays out at least 100 gold. This is more than Theo's family earns. The level of agriculture in his city was terrible. Theo understood that this money could greatly help his hometown. so without further ado, Theo agreed. But suddenly it dawned on him. What will everyone say if he comes with a girl? They may perceive it as a gold mine. On the street, Anna and Vin met again. Their communication is similar to that of Theo and Sylvia. Although Anna hoped to marry Vin and not be friends, and Vin apparently was a coward, he asked Theo to go into the carriage and rest there. He also asked not to lose his bottomless pocket, so that investigators don't come for them. Theo remembered again that Glatt wanted to eat the pocket, and sweat poured off him in streams, but he promised Vin to be on his guard. The carriage is ready. Sylvia and Theo set off on their mission. At this rate, they'll arrive in 5 days. But their main problem is awkward silence. Theo almost never interacted with girls, and yet he decided to try to improve his relationship with her. He asked if Sylvia was interested in elementals. Theo summoned Mira and showed her to Sylvia. Of course, Sylvia liked her. This is what Theo was counting on. Remove the awkwardness between them with sweet Mira. 4 days have passed. They will arrive tomorrow. Sylvia asked Theo what his hometown was. Theo replied in short, just a village. Life there is not rich, but people always share. In short, fools live there, he added and laughed. Sylvia said it must be a good place. Theo agreed with her. He was already looking forward to meeting his parents. Suddenly, they both felt something unpleasant. It was a crowd of monsters, and they were heading towards them. The undead weren't usually around here. Theo never expected to meet them here. Theo and Sylvia decided to split up. Theo took the left flank, Sylvia the right. The carriage overturned when the undead attacked, so Theo asked the people to hide nearby in the forest, while Seely and Theo fight the goblins, kobolds. Even with the orcs, unfortunately, not every monster can be seen. But Theo could sense the warlock's presence. Then he decided to start with fire. He wanted to burn every monster. But they are in the forest, not the best idea. It's a good thing the undead's physical abilities are low, and they are unarmed. But then suddenly a troll appeared. Surely that warlock controls these monsters. Theo was in danger. This troll was very fast, and Theo was unable to cast the spell. But Sylvia was still faster. She instantly grabbed the troll in a water snake trap. Theo admired her knowledge. This spell is perfect for this situation. Theo called on Mira for help, and Mira created the earthworm. She controlled this worm. This is what large-scale magic looks like. The worm began to destroy the forest with the undead. It worked, but Theo used up all his strength. Seely ran to his aid. Theo needs to train more, to learn how to distribute your power correctly. The man asked if the magicians were finished. Theo said, for now, yes, but you should be careful, because more monsters may appear. Theo was worried about so many undead in his area. He hoped that all was well with his city. But it didn't help much. He was still afraid. The border was attacked by the undead. There are at least 5 slopes between the barony and the border. This was the 4th. There is still one left ahead. Then Theo had something in mind. He asked Seely to come out when he gave the signal. It seems Theo wants to check the state of his city from afar. Theo climbed onto the roof of the carriage and used Eagle Eye to see the state of your city. And I saw something terrible. A real war was taking place there. The residents fought these monsters. Theo is surprised that they were able to resist the undead. But there were also mercenaries among the residents. Moreover, they had good skills. Theo asked the coachman to head to the village. He reluctantly obeyed him, and Seely joined Theo. Theo opened the triple layer of fire arrow, and he sent these arrows into the sky. Sylvia added her ice arrows to Theo's spell. 2 opposing spells combined. The residents realized that the magicians were on their side, and they began to fight more confidently. Seely created a fireball. Theo also created a fireball and combined it with her spell. The guys fired and the undead burned like matches, and the residents continued to fight fiercely. So the monsters were noticeably losing in this battle. Theo and Sylvia decided that the worst was over. So they decided to take a breather, but it's too early to relax. A wyvern has appeared in the sky, and she flew straight to the carriage. Theo wanted to attack with an arrow, but it was too late. She was too close, and Theo knew it. Sylvia created a shield. Theo supported her. It doesn't look like the shield can withstand the monster. After all, the guys are exhausted. There was a stranger who said. He was told that there were magicians here, but they were just children. The stranger attacked the wyvern alone and succeeded. This guy seems to be quite strong. He said that he had been trying to catch this monster for a long time. But he didn't come down, so he's even grateful to the kids. Theo introduced himself and also introduced Sylvia, who was hiding behind him, still uncomfortable with people. The stranger said it seemed like it would be polite if he introduced himself as well. They are mercenaries hired by the lord of this village. They are called Stray Wolves. And this guy is the one who runs the show here. His name is Randolph. And because of the current situation, Randolph wanted to check the guys' identities. Returning home after 5 long years, Theo could not even imagine. The first thing he will be asked to do is confirm his identity. But to be honest, given the situation, Randolph has a right to be suspicious. Theo himself understood this, so he had to show his documents. After reading the document, Randolph noticed that Theo's surname was similar to the Lord's. It was a little awkward. Theo said that the Lord of these lands is his father. Randolph's nervous laugh suggested he was uncomfortable with the situation too. And to get things back to normal, Randolph extended his hand and said, "Welcome to the homeland." There was a bit of a fuss here, as Theo himself saw, but they've already sorted it out. He led them to the village. Grandpa and the other villagers noticed Theo, and Grandpa immediately ran to him. Grandpa was very happy to see him. He couldn't believe how much Theo had matured in all those years since they had seen each other. Theo seemed to be popular in his village, and a crowd immediately surrounded him. Unlike at the academy, people here were happy to see Theo. Just as Theo had worried, people started asking if Theo had brought his girlfriend, and they have already started praising the non-existent couple. Theo tried to explain to them that she was just a colleague, when suddenly he heard someone. It was Theo's father. Finally, father and son reunited after so many years. Dad apologized for the terrible reception, but Theo asked his father not to say that. After all, what was more important to him was that they were all safe. Finally, Theo returned to the warm home he had missed so much. There were so many things he wanted to tell his family, but right now something else was more important. Namely, what are such undead creatures doing in these places? And where do the parents get the money for mercenaries, especially of such a high level? Dad said that he would remain in their great debt, since they had originally hired them to deal with the bandits. But on the day they stopped in the village, these monsters began to attack. It turns out these mercenaries have been defending the village for a week, longer than they agreed. Theo found it difficult to believe in their altruism, since mercenaries only work for money, unlike his father. Perhaps there is some hidden treasure in the village that even the residents don't know about. Yes, they should be grateful to Randolph, but there is something strange about him. He was too good to be a regular mercenary, Theo thought. All their actions raise quite a lot of suspicion. Theo has something to think about. He went into his room after saying goodbye to Sylvia. When she was finally alone, he asked Glatt to wake up. Glatt appeared and said, what he managed to find out was that Theo was much more sensitive than he thought. Theo didn't buy it and asked how many books he should give him. Glatt wanted 2 or 3. Now it would be wise to get answers using Glatt. So Theo gave him 2 good books, which Glatt mastered immediately, so it was time for the question. But it turns out Glatt is unaware of what's going on while he sleeps. So Theo came to briefly explain what had happened during all this time. About a missing researcher, a group of undead, and the presence of a warlock. After listening to the rest, Glatt admitted that, judging by Theo's words, what was happening and the whole situation was strange. But it seems Glatt knew the reason for what was happening. At least that's what he said. Most likely, somewhere in that cave there is the same grimoire as Glatt himself. Judging by Theo's reaction, he clearly didn't expect that other grimoires existed. So Glatt explained that he was just one of a collection of grimoires of the 7 deadly sins. Now Glatt himself wanted to find that grimoire in the cave. It was truly better than guessing. If Theo doesn't mind, he can use his abilities to find his location. He will even find that warlock. This generous offer scared Theo. That's what Theo said. Glatt doesn't seem like himself. Glatt is a real egoist. But then everything became clear. Glatt admitted that he wanted to eat that grimoire. And as it turns out, this will help remove the skill that will raise Theo to another level. In this case, as a magician. Theo will develop much faster. All that Glatt cares about is food. But this news is not so bad. Vin's pocket can breathe a sigh of relief. Theo agreed, and Glatt praised Theo for making the right decision, and immediately starting the search. Of course, Glatt quickly found the warlock, but he also noticed him. And he turned out to be strong. Being only in the 2nd stage, he was already able to block Glatt's search. The bad news doesn't end there. This warlock ate his master. Not all grimoires adhere to a symbiotic lifestyle like our Glatt. Most of them prefer to become a parasite and take over the host, taking over his body and mind. Devouring them whenever they please, this grimoire falls into the green category. One way or another, Glatt discovered the location. The cave is the hiding place of the grimoire and its owner. Glatt said that since he had done his job, he would go to bed. But Theo was worried about something. He asked if Glatt could devour the undead, since they were also made of magic. But Glatt said that this was nonsense. If it were possible, he could eat stones, and the undead move thanks to magic. If Theo can get rid of the magic inside them, they will become nothing more than corpses. They are not woven from magic, and do not contain any knowledge at all. But there are exceptions. However, Glatt decided not to talk about them now and went to bed, just being picky. There was a knock at the door, and someone asked if the young gentleman was not asleep and could come in. Theo gave his permission, and Randolph entered the room and apologized for his late intrusion. But Theo said that was unnecessary, because he knew that Randolph would come. Randolph allowed himself to sit down and began to shower Theo with compliments. But Theo decided to get straight to the point. He asked why the mercenaries were still in the village, since they could easily break through the siege of the undead. But Randolph convinced Theo that it was all for good reasons, because they were all human beings here. Although Randolph quickly realized that Theo would not believe this nonsense, and he began to tell a story. A long time ago, an ancestor of his clan was pursuing a warlock. In a foreign land, he left, taking with him 2 family swords, but never returned. Ever since then, his family had been searching for these swords, and finally, they made an artifact. which is able to track them, which means the location of the swords is here. In those damn mountains, 100 years had passed. Randolph did not even hope to find them. But the artifact began to react, and that mountain was strewn with undead. These are not just any swords. The master's technique is embedded in them. If the reason for all this is to overcome the wall, then Theo won't be able to help. But he understands that Randolph was hinting that he wouldn't be able to get the swords while sitting here. Theo was impressed by the mercenary's insight. Randolph suggested preparing for evacuation, but Theo refused. And he added that half of all people will die in the process. Randolph was more optimistic, saying half would get out alive. Whatever was out of place, the result will be the same, no matter how Randolph interprets it. Theo had an idea and said he had a proposal. More of a request, he wanted to hire stray wolves. Theo was willing to give all his money for this. 2 days, 300 gold. This money could have been used more wisely. This amount alarmed Randolph, and he decided to listen to everything first. No matter how big the pay, he will not go into a losing fight. This is unusual for a mercenary. Basically, all they care about is money. Then Theo started talking about the undead. Randolph admitted that the undead were too annoying. They need a turning point to turn the situation in their favor. And there is only one way: counterattack. Theo intends to strike their lair with a small group of men. Randolph realized this, and admitted that there was some merit to the plan. However, this is not enough to convince him. Then Theo said that he already knew where the warlock was hiding. If Randolph will protect Theo and Sylvia, they would deal with him. Randolph asked if it wouldn't be better to attack during the day. But Theo said that the undead would attack the village at night, and their lair would be vulnerable. Randolph was still dubious, but admitted that the plan was not bad. The mercenaries will remain to defend the village, and the 3 of them will attack the lair. If the plan fails, the troops will be evacuated along with the residents. In addition, he will pay 300 gold pieces. After thinking it over, Randolph accepted Theo's order. He got the artifact and made the deal. Then Theo said he remembered something. According to the principles of mercenaries, all relics obtained during the transaction, they are given to the client as family heirlooms. Randolph didn't expect Theo to have planned all of this, and Theo asked if Randolph had 300 gold pieces and would like to share them. Theo received 200 gold pieces, and Randolph received his family heirloom. The army had already assembled. Everyone had taken their position. They will be able to stop the undead even if they appear as a crowd. Randolph was amazed by the magician's plan. Sylvia came and Theo asked, "Just woke up." She replied that she hadn't slept like this for a long time. Theo said the sun was setting and they were starting preparations. "Looks like it's going to be a long night." Randolph shouted, "The boys did a great job. They must enjoy this bloody night until dawn. Tonight will put an end to all this." Then he returned to the boys, and they cast spells. Randolph said they could start at any moment. "If they are ready," Theo replied, "no problem." Then Randolph picked up the children and ran at lightning speed. The kids couldn't believe that a person could move like that without magic. From now on, Randolph will act according to the contract. He asked Theo to lead them along the shortest route. Theo told them about the road and Randolph took off again. The guys were on the spot in an instant. Randolph said, "They are there. What are the instructions?" But Theo wasn't quite up to it. Then Randolph let them go, and Theo said they needed to find out where the necromancer was. Only Theo came up to find the necromancer. How that necromancer himself touched Theo. Just looking at his mana for a second, Theo felt a terrifying sense of darkness. It would have been dangerous if he hadn't stopped looking at her. Mana filled with darkness literally overflows this cave. The boys entered the cave but quickly froze. Theo's hypothesis turned out to be wrong. The lair was overflowing with monsters. The necromancer knew they were coming. He ordered the monsters to kill everyone, but Theo was confident of their victory. Theo created a barrier with one hand and a fireball with the other. Randolph was worried that Theo would kill them all, using fire magic inside the cave, but everything worked out. All that was left was to finish off the fried ones. The oxygen supply is greatly reduced, but they have Sylvia, and it can add oxygen to the cave. The team had enough strength, so the guys moved on. According to the report, the cave is no more than a couple of 100 meters deep, so they should be hitting bottom any minute now. Theo asked Randolph to destroy that wall. Randolph used his aura and cut through the wall, but the hole in the wall quickly reconnected. The situation is getting worse. Suddenly some ghosts appeared, and Randolph has no holy water at all. They are not in the best position, but it is worth trying to break free. But Theo asked Randolph to stand behind him. Nowhere in the whole world is there such a predator who would be afraid of his prey. Theo is very lucky to have Glatt. The ghosts of the warrior and the foolish troll were absorbed. They have a spiritual body, so Glatt was able to eat them. It was precisely this exception that Glatt was talking about. Theo tried to stand in front so that the guys wouldn't see Glatt. I wonder when they will show the abilities of the other guys. Or compared to the other guys, our hero doesn't seem like the main one. However, the dungeon shook violently. It looks like the dungeons are starting to expand, and the whole space was enveloped in ominous energy. The creepy mummy said, "Guys, like rats." They managed to destroy his creations, but that is the limit of their capabilities. But the weirdo was sure that the guys couldn't kill his body. If they had come here half a day earlier, they could have made it in time. But now, the only fate awaiting them is death, and the appearance of someone who is beyond mere mortals. It was the ancient Lich. Randolph asked if there was any plan. But this creature is most likely immortal. It's over until his life vessel is destroyed. If this vessel is not found, it is impossible to kill him. Theo decided to take on the search for the vessel, and the guys will distract the monster, and the monster said. Of course, he paid attention to the main character. Lich wanted to use Theo's body for an experiment. The body is not yet fully developed, but the Lich still wanted to study his body, even though he was a simple magician. After that, he used some kind of spell, and Theo disappeared without even having time to react. Sylvia asked where he had moved Theo, but Lich said it was not the right time to worry about anyone but himself. Enough of renouncing their destiny. Now they will be his servants. A servant appeared from the ground who looked like Randolph, and the servant had those same swords. Randolph said he would chop him into small pieces. Lich mocked him, but Randolph was serious. He was about to cut it. Lich thought Randolph was arrogant and asked if it was just instinct. What makes them go into a losing battle? People have no instincts. Lich despised the presence of emotions. He considered them a hindrance, but he himself felt inferior. And the reason for this was Sylvia. He realized that Sylvia was from the Blue Tower. And they are here to find his body, asked the Lich. The mage they lost contact with, Giovanni from the Blue Tower. His body can't wait to get rid of her. Sylvia had no idea what he wanted to say, but it didn't matter. She decided to defeat him. Lich admitted that she had more courage than the owner of his body, and he accepted Sylvia's challenge, and Randolph fought with the doll. It looks like it won't be easy to defeat him, but Randolph was no slouch either. He continued to fight fiercely with his dead relative. However, even after turning into an undead, he has no weak points. If Randolph weakens his defenses, he will die immediately. He needs to aim for the core to destroy the undead. Randolph noticed the coat of arms on the sword, the name of one of the leading families in the Empire, which valued strength above all else. They even occupied a place among the 7 swords of the Empire. But Clovis fell after one incident, the disappearance of the man who was given the royal decree. It was this order that marked the beginning of Clovis's downfall. And this is what the Randolph family had been searching for all these years. This undead ancestor of his holds the family heirloom, and he is able to fight until then, while he was supplied with mana, and the undead was also a master of the sword. It looks like it will be a long fight, and Randolph will have to try harder than usual. Randolph managed to land the first blow. Just when he thought he had a little time, the undead attacked. Even though Randolph cut off his head, the undead are somehow still moving. But the head of the undead is a vital point. And if things continue like this, Randolph doesn't stand a chance. We need to find its core as soon as possible. No matter how much I watch him, his stand-up is simply magnificent. That is, even after death, the undead are able to retain their skills. Plus he uses red haze to disappear. This technique is over 100 years old, but there must be a gap in it too. Randolph had been looking for him for so long, and he had already become a stinking undead. Because of him, Clovis's descendants became scum. This order of the king was just a trap, to destroy their family. He's just an old man stuck in a rotten world. Randolph said he would give him a chance for eternal sleep. Let him tell me how to finish him off. Randolph's speech worked. The undead pointed to his chest. Apparently the ancestor's soul was stuck in this body, and he himself wanted to get out. But he was controlled by the Lich. So he kept fighting. Randolph was already beginning to lose hope, but he quickly pushed these thoughts away. He intends to take these swords and return home. The man asked if he had decided who would go. His Majesty said that he would only allow one to go. The girl opened her eyes, deciding that her brother was next to her, but there was only a butler there. From that day on, she became part of their family, to achieve mastery of the Imperial Knight level. Remembering this, Randolph attacked the undead again, and despite his strength, the undead repelled his attack. The fight between them was fierce. They crossed swords and then Randolph jumped on him. This technique was lost 100 years ago. Randolph asked, no one would object, if he becomes the successor in this century. With these words, Randolph killed the undead, and he took the family heirloom. Now the old man can rest in peace. There was a loud roar and Randolph remembered the Lich. All this time, Sylvia was fighting with him. Seeing that Randolph had defeated the swordmaster, he decided to take his body too. Meanwhile, Theo woke up and looked around, but there was nothing around except this thing. Theo thought that this was the core of the dungeon. His whole body told him that this was the core. A life vessel. He sealed his heart within the core of the dungeon. How convenient for Theo. He can easily kill him and become a hero again. Theo created a fire spell and directed it towards the heart. The first attempt failed, but the hero of the story will of course come up with something. According to historical records, only the aura of a swordmaster, or the power of a 7th circle mage is capable of destroying it. It will be hard to return to the world. After thinking it over, Theo decided to try hitting the heart again. With his fire spell, he decided to gather all the mana available to him at the moment, and hit the prince with an arrow. But you have to try not to accidentally tear off your own hand. There are no guarantees that everything will work out. But it's better than just waiting to be made into a doll. Theo gathered all the mana in his hand. Suddenly, he remembered what Glatt had said about the fact that the undead move thanks to magic. Without it, the undead are just ordinary corpses. He called back the arrow and wondered if there was mana in his heart. It is a vessel, which means it must be filled with mana. Theo assessed the vessel. It's a treasure tier item, and once again, Glatt comes to Theo's aid, which simply swallowed the heart. It's good to be the main character, with a bunch of hints and helpers. Sylvia created a shield that protected them. It looks like this time we won't be shown Sylvia's talent. For that, we saw again how Glatt helped Theo. Lich wanted to make vessels out of Sylvia and Randolph. And when he started to cast spells again, Randolph recklessly attacked him and was subsequently beaten by the Lich. But Randolph did not back down. He wanted to make a gap. To give Sylvia a chance to shoot, she created enormous magic despite her small mana reserves. And she attacked the Lich, who admired her abilities. But he repeated that they could not avoid death. When the mana runs out, the ice will dissolve, and the Lich will come out again. Having freed himself, the Lich immediately began casting a spell, which will make dolls out of the kids. But at that moment, the Lich felt a crunch inside himself. And just like that, the main character was allowed to defeat the ancient Lich. They put it where the heart was and gave it to Glatt, which swallowed the heart. Apparently the other characters are deliberately made weaker, so that against their background, Theo looked like a hero. And it looks like Theo is about to get another bonus. Who makes others believe that he is strong. Chains of mana appeared on the ground. And having gathered together, they created a grimoire. Then Glatt absorbed it without further ado. Grimoire resisted and screamed. He was unhappy that his user was killed. Glatt asked, so he wanted to use his master as his host. That's why Theo was teleported here. Despite the resistance, Theo received another gift from heaven. I didn't even have to break a sweat to get the legendary item. This item was of the 9th circle. It looks like Theo is going to be a special boy again, one of a kind. Theo asked, Glatt isn't going to eat it right now, right? Glatt wanted to try it. It was a rare opportunity. Theo asked if there was a way to defeat this grimoire. Glatt answered, yes and no, Theo asked, hidden function. But Glatt said he couldn't say anything more. A homeless pocket, Vin confided to him. But Theo was in no position to think about that. But if he can't eat the grimoire here and now, then a second one will appear. Then Theo asked what would happen to the items in the pocket. Glatt replied that they would not disappear anywhere. Eventually, Theo gave in and fed Glatt with his homeless pocket. The hidden feature has been unlocked, allowing you to store your loot for later. That is, there will be a bottomless pocket inside Theo. And Theo was unhappy. He asked what was the point of absorbing the pocket. Glatt explained that Theo couldn't keep the grimoire in his pocket. The inventory is a spatial entity that exists within Glatt. There is no way the grimoire can escape. Theo absorbed the grimoire, but as soon as he did, the cave began to collapse. And so Theo spat back into reality. Theo told them that the cave would collapse and it was time to escape. As Theo ran away, he noticed that Randolph had finally gotten to his family heirloom. With them, Randolph hoped to reach the level of a sword master. They got out successfully. Theo thought melancholically about how they defeated the Lich. But Theo understood that once again he was simply lucky. In the future, he can no longer count on luck. He needs to get stronger. Randolph suddenly asked why Theo was so sad. Theo asked why Randolph called him Sir. The contract was over. Randolph then asked if Theo wanted to see the swords. Since ancient times, people have lost their heads at the mention of these swords. True, Randolph improved the sword a little, spending all the money. Then Theo asked if that was the case and whether he should ask him for anything else for them. But Randolph changed the subject to Sylvia, who has already been offered to sew a wedding dress. Theo shouldn't have left her alone with the villagers. Theo jumped up from his seat, shouting, "Stop spreading rumors." Having reached there, he asked his grandfather to stop. Randolph remained above and watched them. And I was glad to see how the guys were happy and laughing. The stranger approached the door and looked around to see that there was no one there. He knocked on the door and entered the room. He said he was still curious about what had happened. It was unexpected to receive an invitation from the Lord of the Red Tower. The Lord said that the old man always declined her invitations. The old man asked to tell why Miss Veronica had called him. Miss asked if he had heard that someone had defeated a Lich. The old man asked her about the winners of the student tournament. Miss replied, the old man is quick-witted, which means he already knows what she wants to say. The old man said that this time he was unable to help, the Miss asked. The old man avoided answering who he had a preliminary agreement with. Miss said, let him speak already, the old man asked. Is this an order? Veronica replied, an order. If she said so, he would feel uncomfortable, right? The old man just laughed and said he was just joking. The king ranks above her in precedence. Still wants to meet him? Miss replied, of course. Two guys were going down. It looked like they were looking for something. Johnny was sure there was treasure here, but suddenly Johnny froze, looking at the ceiling. Something unprecedented fell down with a crash, and the guys froze in place, not knowing what to do. Before the man could ask if it was treasure, the thing took him away. The incomprehensible creature could speak. which means it was intelligent. Unfortunately, it looked at people as food. The poor man was crushed with one hand, his screams echoing throughout the cave. But this was not enough for the monster it still wanted to eat. And it wants someone stronger, more nutritious. Shopping district, Kurt and the old man were heading somewhere. And the king and the old man discussed Veronica's recklessness. More precisely, the old man complained to Kurt that all lords become wiser over time. But Veronica continues to become more and more reckless. Kurt just laughed and said who could be more problematic than the Lord of the Red Tower. And he asked, the old man had come to talk about Theo, hadn't he? And so it was. The old man was worried about Theo's surprisingly rapid growth. Kurt asked, so he had some suspicions about Theo. The elder of the White Tower, Sean, answered something like that. And he recalled that the king himself had rewarded Theo with an excessive reward. Kurt replied that he only did it to strengthen the bond between them. Although he admitted that he himself understood Sean's concerns, he added, no matter how good the horse is, it's all useless if it's tied up. But if you give her freedom, her potential will be revealed. To go all this way is a huge strength. And it doesn't matter what kind of magic he has, despite that. That he is a king. First and foremost, he is a magician who recognized Theo's skills. Sean then decided that it was best to bring Theo back to the capital as soon as possible. Meanwhile, Theo was training because of the life vessel he had absorbed. The newly formed fifth circle is extremely unstable. The heart of an ancient lich that Theo unintentionally absorbed. It forced him to the fifth circle. Finally, Theo finished his training. And now Theo was thinking about how to tell Vin everything. While Theo was suffering, Sylvia arrived. And she asked if she could come in. Theo shouted. She had already come in. Theo quickly put on his t-shirt while Sylvia apologized. She sat down and Theo asked what she wanted. Sylvia said that Grandpa wanted to see him. Before Theo could figure out what was going on, Sylvia was dragging him towards Sean. It turned out that Sylvia and Sean had a grandfather-granddaughter relationship. Thor will be upset, Sean looked at Theo and said. That Theo looks surprisingly simple. Theo introduced himself and Sean also introduced himself. And he added that he was here as an investigating magistrate. Usually they don't send it, but considering the situation with the Lich, he was sent because it was a rare case. Theo was visibly nervous as he asked what Sean wanted to say. Sean asked why Theo was so nervous. Hiding something, Sean said it was just a joke. Theo laughed nervously with him. Sean wanted to talk about Theo's report. Specifically, he was curious as to how Theo was able to destroy the vessel. Let him be lucky to be in the same place as the vessel. In theory, it is impossible to destroy it unless you have the seventh circle. Theo replied. He used the bottomless pocket, placed the vessel there, and then destroyed it. He lies like he breathes, but he also can't tell about Glatt. But the news about the destroyed pocket did not make Sean happy. It's a rather perverse method, but there is a chance of its success, Sean admitted, but then added, defeat the ancient Lich using only your pocket. It was nothing but luck that the Lich didn't know Theo had Glatt. It was only thanks to Glatt that they survived there. Sean, not knowing what to add, thanked Theo for his assistance, and he offered to finish the last thing. Sean admitted that he didn't come all this way by chance. This was the order he was supposed to follow to meet Theo. Later, Theo got ready and left the city. But Randolph was waiting for him and asked, doesn't want to say goodbye to everyone before leaving. Theo replied, he doesn't want to lose heart. Randolph replied, they are leaving too. He came to say goodbye and promised to give a discount. If Theo hires his team again, Theo only advised him. Don't be fooled, Randolph added. They'll see each other again, but Theo should turn around. Behind were the residents and Theo's family, whom we never met. Theo promised to return and left. Sean asked the guys if they were ready. The guys nodded. They were about to return to the capital, leaving the job of searching for traces of the Lich to his team. Then Sean began to create a spell. It was mass teleportation magic. Theo was returning to the capital, faster than he expected. But he certainly didn't expect to return in this way. 3 important people have business with Theo. And although Theo didn't know what to expect, he was in anticipation. That's how quickly they moved to the capital. Theo didn't expect everything to be so easy and fast. This was his first teleportation. And it is understandable. Not everyone has such magic. Sean said they could move now and they left. And Vin met them, and now Theo has to explain himself. Vin said that it seemed like Theo had become a crybaby in the time they hadn't seen each other. Theo cried like a child, telling what had happened to him. Vin suggested that we talk about everything later. Sean asked if Vin was really here by accident. Vin was sweating. And he said he was trying to convince her, when suddenly Theo was jumped. But Theo didn't seem to survive it. Then Veronica finally introduced herself. The old people had a hard time. And Veronica asked, Vin said that Theo was on the 4th circle. Suddenly she called upon her abilities, and the air seemed to be about to burst into flames. She said Theo had an unstable 5th circle. Theo sheepishly admitted that he hadn't been able to stabilize it yet. This only intrigued Veronica more, and she wanted to take Theo with her. She also has some business with the king. She said she just wanted to show off the palace. But something told me she was lying. She took the children and brought them to the king's office. Veronica says whatever comes into her head, even that Theo would end his days alone. For some reason Theo was surprised, but the doorman was not at the office. Theo decided that entering the office would be difficult, but Veronica didn't think so. She had another option. She decided to knock lightly on the king's door. It turned out that Thor was also in the office. Kurt greeted Veronica and the children. Veronica simply didn't like formalities, although maybe she went a little overboard. While she laughed, the children knelt before the king. It seems Veronica has forgotten that for the children, Kurt is the king. Kurt also said hello to the kids. Thor scolded Veronica for being a bad example to the children, while Kurt congratulated the children on their victory over the Lich. Theo thanked them for the praise and added that mercenaries had helped them, which helped them a lot. Thor read out the boys' reward for defeating the Lich, but Kurt also decided to grant one wish. As a reward, Kurt asked what Theo wanted. Theo has a chance to request a national treasure-level artifact. Although the risk is high, Glatt often whined that he wanted better quality books. There are books that are much more effective. If you eat a book, you can stabilize the fifth circle. Theo asked for a book from the Zero library. Veronica brought Theo to the library, complaining about Thor. Theo was surprised that such a library was guarded by simple glass. But Veronica explained that it was not glass, but an adamantium alloy. It seems she decided to open the door using her usual method. Theo was worried that she would destroy the doors. But when he opened his eyes, he saw that there wasn't even a scratch on the door. Veronica was not happy about this. She wanted to train harder so she could break down doors with her hands. It turned out that it was a password. Only the king and the lords have the authority to use it. Theo entered the valuable and colorless library. After reading a couple of books, Theo asked what that monstrous power was, with which she tried to destroy the doors. Does this mean that Veronica is a battle mage? Miss replied that she was a half-breed red dragon, so she was stronger than most. Now it's clear why Theo sweats so much. Veronica usually restrains herself, but it's hard to control. She asked if Theo had found the book he wanted. Theo replied, "No, it's difficult to make a choice. After all, they are all the best." Veronica confirmed this. As the Lord of the Tower said, all the books here are treasures. Theo can't find a book that suits him. He can't miss such a great opportunity. Taking the book of the seventh circle and studying it is a great idea. Miss offered Theo the book Song of Battle. He will be able to achieve power similar to aura users through magic. Theo began to evaluate the book, Secret Technique of the Samurai, original by the author himself, a good book. Theo asked why he hadn't met anyone with this technique yet. Veronica answered that it was simple. The battle song required enormous concentration. To do this, you must, at a minimum, undergo combat training. You need to strengthen your body using 4 magic circles, but this can become an Achilles heel. The pros and cons are clear. Glatt ordered to take this book. Previously, Glatt would not wake up without being hungry. This book can help you unlock Glatt's third skill. And Glatt, of course, won't say what this skill is, but Glatt promised that he would not disappoint Theo. Suddenly, Veronica said that she had chosen this book for a reason. It may look like magic, requiring such concentration. It's not worth it, but that's what makes it so unique. Finally, Theo and Vin sat down to drink tea. Theo told how he went through the nightmare, and Vin laughed that Theo had attracted Veronica's attention. And yet he admitted that this was the first time she had behaved like this. It took him 2 years before she started calling him by his first name. But it doesn't matter, Vin asked. What he talked about during the meal was serious. Theo felt it during the battle with the Lich. He can't rely on luck all the time, and he wants to enter the Red Tower to become stronger. Vin realized that Theo had already made up his mind, and if so, they will immediately begin the procedures. Theo thanked him for accepting his stubbornness. Glatt reminded everyone of his presence and said that he wanted to eat. Theo was unhappy because Glatt interrupted an important conversation. But Glatt didn't care. He wanted to eat. Vin didn't mind interrupting their communication. Theo took a book from his personal inventory and fed Glatt. Looks like Theo will have to go through synchronization again. And this time, the synchronization conditions are incredibly high. Here is the author and creator of this technique. The spiritual connection was approved. Lee realized he had a guest and asked, "Isn't it a nice breeze?" The same thing happened with Alfred, but who is Lee talking to? Suddenly Lee answered, "As with whom? With the one who is now inside his body." Lee explained where he grew up, and that he was born the heir to a family of knights. The East was known to be the place where people studied auras, not magic. They were called shamans, but how did a shaman get to Meltor? And how he created the high-level magic Song of Battle. Lee decided to share his story. He was born into a famous clan, but his life was not easy, because Lee did not have the skills to study the aura. They erased his name from the tree and left it in a house high up in the cities. But Lee did not accept his fate. He traveled a long way and ended up in Meltor, and having found a teacher, he created the Song of Battle. He used his clan's knowledge without their consent, and what he was about to teach Theo. The ideal Song of Battle, the Dance of the Immortals, is the Dance of the Gods, which has incredible similarities with the clan's martial arts. He reproduced his clan's aura art using the Song of Battle, because it was something he couldn't use. One day, Lee returned back to prove himself to the clan. His father was still alive, but he only condemned his magic. calling it a common trick, even though he was stronger than all the clan members. Then he returned to the kingdom and soon died. It was a life in which he could leave nothing behind. He had nothing to hope for, but now he has a receiver. The synchronization ended and Theo finally woke up. He looked unwell, as if he had just woken up from hibernation. So he asked the obvious question. How long had he slept? Vin replied, about 30 hours. Vin didn't know what Theo had been through, but he advised him to look at himself in the mirror. Theo's body changed a lot in just one day, although his hair also became longer. And not only Theo's physical abilities, but also his sensitivity became better. He only inherited the abilities, but he changed so much. Theo overcame the main weakness of a mage, a weak body, in one day. Now he wanted to meet Veronica. To finish with the 5th circle, the Lord of the Red Tower had a lot to do. She completed the case quickly and professionally. When the assistant left, the mask of seriousness fell from the Lord. She was irritated by the boring paperwork. She complained to herself that she had been fed this boring stuff. Unexpectedly, the assistant returned again, and he reported that someone was requesting an audience with her. A rank-and-file mage who has just entered the Red Tower, Theo Miller. This made the Lord happy, and to escape from the paperwork, the Miss ran away herself, leaving all the remaining work to his assistant. She really didn't want to spend the whole day doing paperwork. That's why Veronica was so glad that Theo called her. It seems she didn't suspect anything, even though Theo had changed so much in 10 days. Theo thanked her for taking the time to talk to him. Miss Veronica admitted that she herself was glad to escape from her boring job, and then she asked if Theo was here because of her last words. Theo confirmed her guess. Then she asked him not to become boring like those old men, and she called him to a place that Theo knew well. They came to the showroom. She knows that Vin often trained Theo here. Veronica explained that it was the best decision due to inexperience. This is to recreate a situation in which his circle will improve. But there is still a method, and all that is needed is to reunite them. This is the only thing she can help him with. Veronica just released all the pressure, and it was terribly difficult for Theo. Miss suggested that Theo compete with his sister. She promised not to use magic above the 5th circle. Here it is, the power of the dragon, and also the magician of the 8th circle. But Theo wasn't about to give in to fear. It will be very nice to see the surprised expression on her face. Glatt can now cast spells, still silent for others to talk to Theo. Theo increased his speed by using wind magic. For mages, changing spells has always carried danger. It always carries with it a huge chance of failure. After all, just one mistake can be fatal since there is an enemy nearby waiting for it. But Theo can use magic without these risks. And while Veronica was speaking, Theo sped up and attacked her, but with a different spell, Revival. Then Veronica admitted that she had underestimated Theo, and now she decided to play seriously. Without even using a single spell, she moves at the same level as the aura user. Close combat wasn't an option, so Theo decided to break the distance. Veronica seemed to be having fun, and she wasn't embarrassed that Theo learned the Song of Battles in 10 days. Only after using everything will Theo feel his limit. That's exactly why Miss was putting so much pressure on him. Then Theo decided to resort to the arrow again. He wanted to make a crack in her barrier. Thanks to the synchronization, the arrow should have become stronger. Veronica liked Theo's plan to attack from mid-range. Then she summoned a fire arrow and struck the floor. Theo didn't expect her arrow to be so powerful, and he realized that competing with her in fire magic was stupid. Theo decided to use earth magic. Having surrounded Veronica, Theo again resorted to Mira's help. Veronica hit Sweet Mira mercilessly, but that's not the end. Theo got the 5th circle. 5 memory slots, opening 5 spells, he managed to complete one. A spell that is based on a different theory of fusion magic that exists now. Theo created his own spell. He no longer tries to create distance between them. Veronica decided to break it with fire. And Theo created his clones, illusion magic, and he combined it with the battle song. While Veronica was wondering which one of them was the real Theo, Theo attacked her with his technique, Inferno. Then Veronica decided that since everything was like this, she should also fight seriously. Inferno magic of the 7th circle, he lowered it to his level due to its low power. Fire magic is ineffective against Miss, so he will add an arrow. He pointed the arrow at Veronica and prayed for her to strike Veronica down. The arrow hit Veronica and she said, "Not bad." But Theo concentrated all his power into one shot. But just think how easily she blocked him. It had been a long time since Miss had felt a chill run down her spine. She wondered how strong he would become. In some 10 or 20 years, Miss told Theo to drink the potion and rest for about 30 minutes. They will fight like this 5 times a day. They also need to train every day for a month. Hearing this, Theo was ready to run away right now. But the enemy will not give him any respite, so he must continue. You need to become as strong as possible so as not to rely on luck. With Veronica, Theo could practice the battle song. But Theo wasn't the only one who used illusion techniques. And she did it so quickly that Theo didn't even notice. Miss found herself behind Theo, and she decided to shoot him. Theo desperately thought about how he could block or dodge the attack. He lost the moment he failed to recognize the illusion. But of course, Theo got lucky again, Somehow he created a barrier. Fifth circle protective magic projection. Miss hugged the student, shouting, "He finally did it." Theo asked the Lord to let him go, but the Miss reminded him that she had asked to be called sister. Half a month has already passed since the beginning of their training. Such a busy mage, how could she find time for Theo, so he could fulfill this simple request? But it didn't work out. The assistant came to report a serious problem. The Miss asked the rank and the assistant answered, "Average importance." Veronica recognized the importance of the problem and went to get an assistant. Red Tower Military Sanctuary. Red Tower responsibility. It mainly consisted of military operations. Missions that required dealing with powerful monsters. And all for the sake of erasing all those who are trying to seize power by force. This event happened 4 days ago. An informant discovered a pair of slaves while intercepting communications between black market users. The organization in response to this is a vicious circle. The main type of activity is concentrated in the kingdom. It's been 100 years since the slave trade was banned, but as expected, it was indeed a slave deal. It was confirmed that the slaves were elves. All these 100 years, they still haven't been able to figure themselves out, and they continue to thirst for power over the elven race. The only available high mage now is Vin. There are about 23 privates available, but they are new. Wine alone will not be enough. And then Miss realized who could be sent with Vin. She ordered Vin and Theo to be sent away. They were immediately summoned. She ordered the slaves to be freed and the slave traders to be destroyed. It would be better to bring the leader alive, but let them see how things go depending on the situation. Vin said he had a request. He wants Theo excluded from this mission. He's only 19. There's no point in sending him on such a dangerous mission. His hands have been in enough dirt already. He can handle it. But Miss believed that this mission was not so simple. And he shouldn't go alone. Vin wanted to object. However, Theo interrupted him, saying that he could handle it. He didn't want Vin to go there alone either. Then Vin gave in and agreed to go with Theo. Miss gave Theo a stray pocket, which he didn't need at all. After all, he has inventory, and the Lord lends his pocket. Then the Lord said that since they understood everything, they could go on the mission. The guys were moved and Vin suffered from side effects. The dizziness should pass soon. There was no time to waste, so they headed straight to the city. Vin said he didn't think they would come back here. He even left a leave of absence before heading to the capital. Everything is so familiar, but the feeling is completely different. Our hero felt it. Of course, it wasn't the city that changed, but Theo himself, his first battle, the duel. He encountered people and monsters who changed him. All these are incredible events, it's hard to believe, but the fifth circle, says Theo. To prove that all this was true, Vin suggested taking a look around. But before that, they should hide their faces. They came to the source of the rumors, the bar. There they noticed that there were many foreigners in the city, and it looks like these foreigners are good swordsmen. Only Vin began to examine the men's blades, how they felt they were being watched and decided to leave. There is no thirst for murder. There is a high chance that it is someone from the intelligentsia. In that case, they need to lure and catch them. As soon as the stranger entered the alley, the guys attacked. Vin, without any further thought, simply hit the stranger. But it would have been worth waiting, because it was Miss from the black market. Vin had already told Theo not to trust her, so Theo stopped all cooperation with her. Vin decided to listen to the reason why she was following them, but Miss asked to dispel the magic first. However, Vin was not known for his friendliness, and he ordered an immediate answer to his question. He warned that if she lied, he would kill her on the spot. Miss stated that she was not following, it was just a coincidence. As she passed by, she recognized them and followed them. Of course, this didn't convince Vin in the least, but Miss insisted that she just wanted to sell a couple of things to Theo. Before he left here, Vin asked her why she was leaving. Miss said that the guild does whatever it wants. They organize the slave trade and all sorts of wild animals. She does not intend to rot with them. These freaks passed the castle walls in secret a couple of weeks ago. If they investigate this, a lot of evidence about the slaves will come to light. Even this didn't convince Vin. Everything was too good. They learned information about them much earlier than they thought, so Vin became even stricter and ordered her to tell him everything she knew. Then Miss brought them to her store and tried to communicate, but Vin ordered an end to the senseless chatter. And getting straight to the point, he will decide what to do with it based on the importance of the information. Vin asked her to tell her everything that she thought related to the slave traders. Miss admitted that she was not particularly privy to the details. Vin immediately became angry, but Miss asked him to listen to her. She has an ironclad rule: don't get involved in dangerous scams. Getting involved with them was a bad idea, so she decided to leave this place. She will get information for them in exchange for a favor. Miss accurately noted that by now asking for information, they will get nothing. The deal will benefit both parties, but since they don't trust her, she's willing to enter into a forced contract. Vin stated that she was good at digging her own escape routes, like a rat. There is nothing wrong with this, because her life is at stake. Even so, Vin said it wasn't enough. Miss said that since they need an advance, they can take it. She is ready to give them everything that is in this shop. Of course, Theo took advantage of this moment. Vin admitted that he is surprised every time he sees a takeover. All artifacts turn into the owner's magic. Miss came back and was surprised that they had already taken everything. Theo asked if he shouldn't have taken everything. Miss replied, no. What was more important was what she found. The map, she can navigate without it, but not they. I sketched it after I took a short walk, but she could not confirm the slaves with her own eyes. It's true, they have close ties to her organization, but they are obsessed with security. The biggest problem is guards. They have no weaknesses in their skills, they are everywhere. Miss told where the guards are stationed. Time intervals are 1 to 1.5 hours with 5 groups of 2 people. Vin asked Theo what he thought about it. Theo suggested attacking from 2 sides so they could save the 4 slaves. Then Vin said that they were moving out tonight. Miss shouted that she had not explained everything yet. This place seems very suspicious. Night. Theo fought hordes of monsters and undead until he became sick of them. But Theo will fight against people for the first time. No hesitation, they are all criminals and deserve to die. Theo reassured himself, repeating to himself that they were just trash, and he can deal with the trash spawn 1,000 times. Theo shot one with the prince's arrow, and then attacked the others. He managed to quickly deal with the patrol. In any case, the master has probably already begun the task. Vin came to the suspicious place that Miss had spoken about. Vin himself didn't see anything special in this place. This white tent stands out a little from the general background. Vin wondered if he should go down there to take a look around. Suddenly an unknown arrow flew past Vin. Then some man appeared and said, "So that's what happened." He was still wondering who had invaded here. "And this is a battle mage," Vin stated. "That's all right." Without glasses, Vin looks like Randolph and Miss Merchant. Vin stated that no one but these idiots would build a slave trade, and everyone who was involved in this will be punished. They didn't originally plan to sell elves here. However, they planned to take them through it. It would be more correct to say that they are hiding a high elf. Vin learned that 3 months ago the Polara River, which is the vital heart of Austin, it began to dry out. Only being nearby, the powers of the high elf can enrich the environment. The guard asked, even knowing this, they came here. Vin didn't mind the high elf being in his debt. Then the guard said that if Vin defected to their side, the Sultan would make him rich. But Vin knew that an elf enemy, and a higher one at that, was a fatal mistake. This is where their discussion ended. The guard fired into the air, which was a sign for the others. The other guards rushed towards him. He lit the signal lights despite knowing about it. That Meltor's soldiers can see him. He is ready to die for his ideals. It's still not finished, but apparently so. Wine has no choice but to use him. The man shouted that he saw the elves with his own eyes, but no one believed him. These guys used to work with Miss Trader, and they did a bad job. While they were talking, Theo attacked them. Theo didn't want to leave a potential threat alive, so I quickly dealt with them. It would be bad if help came running here. Theo wanted to hide the bodies before they were noticed. But another man came running. This also needed to be dealt with. It just happened so carelessly. It was also quite loud at the end, but it didn't seem like anyone noticed. If Theo hadn't mastered all of Lee's experience, then he would have easily avoided the attack. Theo still hasn't fully gotten the hang of the battle song. Suddenly Theo heard screams and went to the tent. The man was unhappy with the deal. The guard asked for a little more time, but the man said that a week had already passed. "Boss Ron, this is the leader of the guild that Miss Merchant belonged to. All soldiers are professionals. This is what the White Tower did not report." Theo wanted to get a feel for the situation before attacking. Somehow Ron noticed Theo and attacked him. He ordered Theo to come into the light. Since that was already the case, Theo decided to come in. There is no other choice but a frontal attack. Ron laughed when he saw that Theo was just a kid. This irritated Theo, and it seemed to hurt his pride. So Theo began to cast the spell. The man shouted, "The damn Punishers have already found them." And while he was complaining, Theo used the battle song. By increasing his speed, Theo killed almost everyone. Ron hadn't expected this, and now he was thinking about how he could avoid Theo. He wanted to run away while the guards fought with Theo. However, Theo had used chain lightning beforehand. Ron dared to ask Theo not to kill him. It was a surprisingly boring fight for Theo. Killing people isn't something Theo can get used to. After all, they are not monsters. This is inexplicably unpleasant. And for some reason, Theo wanted to get rid of this in order to become a killer. Suddenly something came out of Ron's jacket, and Theo had no idea what the hell it was. It might be a monster, but that's not certain. Although this thing somehow hit Theo, and he felt hellish pain. "I can't move, it's even hard to breathe," and that's why Theo lost consciousness. But curses on Glatt will have no effect. It was neutralized, and once again Theo was saved by Glatt. Just a second ago, Theo almost died. Ron left a parting gift before he died. This is an artifact that cursed the killer of its owner. Glatt was able to absorb the curse. Thanks to him, Theo is alive. After that, Theo continued to fight, and so he accidentally discovered the slave cells. And then he immediately began to free the elves imprisoned in them. But now the elves are chasing Theo, but it's difficult to fight with them. The elves asked for the release of their high elf, but Theo didn't get it. He didn't understand that she was some kind of queen. The elf explained that she was a benefactor, a high elf. And then Theo got nervous, because he had read about high elves in books. There he read that such elves are born incredibly rarely, and Theo couldn't understand how she got drawn into all this. Suddenly they saw a bright flame in the sky. Theo immediately realized that it was Vin when he saw him. He ran towards him, but the elves also joined in. Only a magician who had reached the sixth circle could unleash such power. Theo seemed to be worried about his teacher. Having reached the destination, Theo saw that the whole forest was on fire, when suddenly he heard a voice. Vin was okay, but he couldn't move. He got hit pretty hard, but nothing serious. It's surprising that Vin got so hurt. It seemed like Vin wanted to burn his opponent with this blow. That guard was really strong, the elf called them. She explained that the high elf was calling to them. First we need to patch up Vina, and then go after her. Vin sensed the place the elves had spoken of. But Theo didn't feel anything. Then the elf appeared. She is a child of the Blue Evergreen tribe, Eleanor. There is quite a mystical atmosphere around it. Theo couldn't take his eyes off her. Vin introduced himself respectfully to the high elf. Theo also introduced himself, and immediately noticed something unusual. They are surrounded by solid soil, but plants still grow around it. Here is the power of a high elf, Mira suddenly appeared. And she immediately flew to Eleanor. It seems they know each other. But this story will have to be put aside. Because they have guests, strangely enough, no one noticed them. However, Vin told Theo not to worry. The man screamed, "How dare they do something like that?" He ordered his men to examine the wounded, and it seemed they knew Vin. Theo let out a breath when he realized it was Bergen's guard. That night they were able to complete their mission. The guys received an invitation to the estate. Theo got a taste of the rich life. Vin praised the policies of Count Bergen. Unexpectedly, hearing this from Vin, Theo asked, "Is he so good?" Vin really believed in the Count when Vin first came to the academy. The Count treated him with such kindness that Vin felt sick. Vin told Theo to enjoy the evening. They came down as if they were stars. The guys were introduced, and then the Count arrived. He greeted the boys with all his heart. A lot of time has passed since our last meeting. Vin was also glad to meet me. A couple of months had passed since his departure, and he returned to save the elves. Vin chats with him as if the Count knows everything. But in fact, the teacher did not tell him everything, that the high elf is with them, and also that a secret group was involved, because this would lead to a political scandal. It's too early to talk about it. It's better to remain silent about it. Someone from the association will arrive here within 3 or 4 days. The Count suddenly remembered and asked if Theo had not been their student. Theo tensed up a little and said, "Yes, that's right." The Count stated that when Theo won the tournament, he pulled some strings. He thought about calling the dean, but he didn't have time. So, he simply asked to hand over this diploma, on successfully graduating as the best student. Theo thanked him for the diploma. But now, does he need this diploma? Does he mean anything to Theo? Vin admitted that the diploma was not particularly useful. After all, Theo has already reached heights where education is not needed. His 5 years of training is not something that can be written on a piece of paper. Just like magic, it's not just words. The proof of hard work is in his heart. Vin asked, "So what is Theo going to do with his diploma?" And for some reason, Theo burned it, the dramatic one. As Vin said, the diploma is not what matters to Theo. It wasn't that it was a useless item, Theo thought. But his thoughts were interrupted when someone called him. It was Eleanor's voice. But Theo didn't understand where this voice was coming from and turned around. It was a bird, and Eleanor wanted to meet Theo. Sylph bird is a lower wind spirit. They are used to exchange messages. Theo asked the bird to take him to Miss Eleanor, and the bird flew away. Vin realized that Eleanor most likely wanted to talk to Mira. She may know secrets about ancient spirits. Then Theo ran after the bird. It was very nimble. The Count's mansion is huge, and if his mansion is that big, then how much larger are the Marquise's mansions than this one? Theo opened the door and Miss Eleanor greeted him. What was surprising was that Miss grew grapes in the room. She grew it from a seed left over from dinner. Theo couldn't believe his eyes. Eleanor's strength was incredible. The grapes also tasted amazing, and Theo asked for more. After a while, Theo awkwardly asked if he could find out what gender she was. Eleanor was not surprised by this question, because all magicians feel something similar, and she explained that elves are born with bodies that are not tied to gender. They can change their body if they wish, depending on their partner. Now Theo understood why he felt strange, but the answer only puzzled him more. Eleanor asked Theo to summon Mira. Theo felt embarrassed in front of the elf of unknown gender. Eleanor wanted to share information about the world. More precisely, about Mira's true form. Theo agreed and called Mira. The baby woke up and immediately flew to Eleanor. Eleanor asked how much Theo knew about Mira's nature. All Theo knew was that she was an ancient elemental. As expected, Eleanor explained that the ancient elemental was not a resident of the spirit world. They are the seeds of a much more mysterious creature. This is an illusion of the ancient god Zephyr, the western winds of times long gone. According to mythology, it circles the world 4 times a day, and can cause storms with just one breath as well. He was the same elemental who signed the contract with Myrdal. This man is known to Theo, because it was he who gave him Mira. Not all elementals were gods. For some reason, these seeds lost their status. But they also grew into ancient elementals. And if Theo wants, Eleanor will try to restore some of Mira's strength. Now Mira possesses only a small part of that power. What is rightfully hers? Eleanor will be able to restore half of Mira's power. Then Theo asked Mira's opinion if she wanted this. And she didn't mind. Theo awkwardly asked Elle to help. Elle said there was nothing to be embarrassed about. She just wanted to pay off her debt. She began to cast spells, and Theo was once again convinced of her incredible abilities. An incredible amount of vital energy, a feeling like divine powers. Used by priests during healing, Theo noticed that his minor wounds healed immediately, and all the tiredness disappeared, and Theo was just sitting next to me. Theo was confident that using this ability, even fatal wounds could be healed. Elle used the connection between Theo and Mira to reach Theo. She did this to pacify the mind of Mira's master, to show Mira's true form. Long ago, when people did not yet exist, they existed. They were beyond comprehension and caused awe in all living things. Those who had intelligence made sacrifices to them and also began to call them gods. Ironically, it was those who worshipped them and created their personalities that were outside of the being. The form was being forcibly transformed into something she had never seen before. Because of fools who do what they wish, even she who was previously free, now chained to the ground, and yet she found it all beautiful. For some reason, she cannot ignore the call of the pathetic creatures. She rejoices when she hears her name called. But they never thought that something like this could lead to depravity. Ironically, the gods gained self-awareness through humans. And understanding this led to their self-destruction. She too was unable to stop her destruction. Theo tensed up a lot. Elle noticed it and asked if he was okay. She, like Theo, saw everything, through the connection of Theo and Mira. Theo saw the memories of Mira's true form. His consciousness was absorbed by Mira as her true form awakened. It turns out that this place is inside the nature of Mira. He was able to get here because of his closeness to Mira. Elle asked Theo to calm down and slowly lower his body to the ground. But there is a strange, gigantic monster there, and this is Mira's true form. Now this is only a part of the seed that existed long before the beginning of the era. But just a couple of years ago, it was a symbol of abundance and fertility. Her great and sacred name, Mother Earth, is Demetra. Finally, Theo opened his eyes and jumped up from his seat. Mira's true form was more majestic than Theo expected. Elle said that Theo might feel nauseous after the connection. But Theo was already used to this. This happened with Glatt. Suddenly Theo was hugged by a girl. Mira was able to grow up so quickly. It looks like Theo is as surprised as we are. The ritual was successful. Now Mira has become stronger. Theo definitely feels that Mira's powers have increased. Previously, he had a limit on the types of earth magic. But now everything is different. There is no limit anymore. Well, Theo's new title is the girl's father. Susceptibility to earth magic has increased incredibly. Now he has access to non-verbal use of earth magic. Just like Toph's son, mages are only able to use a portion of their magic at a time. Only half of their magic circle, and few geniuses are born with sensitivity. And Theo just got lucky. He's like a parasite that uses the powers of Glatt and Mira. Vin came and said that he had already gotten used to the average elemental magic. He heard that it takes magicians 10 years to do this. But our main character, of course, doesn't need that much time. Theo was worried and asked how Vin's treatment was going. Vin patched Elle up, but the pain was much more persistent than Vin expected. The curse of the dead man is too strong. It was Theo who was lucky with Glatt. Wine will not see complete healing. Theo asked if there was nothing that could be done about it. Elle replied that it was possible to find the high priest and get rid of the curse completely. And in their kingdom they deny religion. How can they find a priest? Vin reassured Theo that everything was okay. This had happened to him before. But he admitted that it would be better for him to abandon the accompanying mission. He doesn't want to be a burden to his student. The kingdom will send people to replace Vin, so Theo doesn't have to worry. It would be nice if it was one of the lords. After all, it concerns a high elf, and the convoy has already arrived. Theo asked why not use space mages. They can simply teleport. So why do they need this convoy? Vin explained. Elves. A race with an innate immunity to magic. They were born with the blessing of nature, which is why they unknowingly cancel everything. Which technically goes against the natural flow, which is what magic is. Teleportation might work with simple elves, but not with higher ones. Now Theo understood why they needed this convoy. Suddenly, a cowboy, the elder of the Red Tower, Herman, came. Herman praised Vin for his new 6th lap. Vin and the other elders went to socialize, and Theo watched them. He heard that Herman had lost 1 circle after injuring his leg in the battle. But Theo senses magic beyond the 6th circle, and Sean is here too. 2 elders from the magic towers arrived, and not only. All the mages gathered here are seasoned veterans, if they wanted to be. They could easily have razed 2 or 3 districts to the ground. Herman noticed Vin's student, whom Adrian Thor had his eye on. Theo became embarrassed, and this made Herman laugh. But the laughter had to be put aside, because Eleanor arrived. Elle greeted everyone and introduced herself. Herman also introduced himself and said that he was responsible for this convoy. Meeting a high elf was a rarity, so Herman was as happy as a child. Eleanor extended her hand and Herman shook it when suddenly Elle began to heal him. Even just by holding her hand, his body is filled with vital energy. He had heard of the powers of the high elves, but this was beyond all expectations. The man reminded them that they had little time and it was time to go. Then Herman suggested regrouping near the transport. They prepared a special transport for Elle. The sight of this car made the boys swim, even Vin. This is a carriage with a magic engine, a mana carriage. The man explained to the boys how they created this carriage. Then he asked me to stop staring and come in already. He wanted to show what it's like when speed makes your head spin. Theo wasn't at all happy about the fact that they were going to ride on it. Herman thanked the Count for his help with the operation, and he stated that Kurt would appreciate his loyalty. The fat man said that he was only doing his duty as a citizen of the kingdom. Much time has passed since the last meeting between Herman and the Count, but the Count's arrogant character, which Herman hated so much, did not disappear. Therefore, Herman quickly left the room. Sean realized that Herman had said a few words and immediately left, and he scolded him for his immaturity, but Herman did not want to tolerate the Count. Then Sean gave up trying to teach cowboy etiquette. Herman stated that Sean is lazy, uses teleports, and does not value time. The old men began to argue actively with each other. Their squabble was stopped by Vin. He wanted to discuss something. Sean then said goodbye to Herman, hinting that his trip would be quick, and Herman will have to travel a long time by car with his aching joints. Herman complained that old man Sean hadn't changed a bit. Vin said he heard it from a high elf a couple of days ago. The Obsidians did steal the elves, but there was someone else who attacked her guards. High elves are very rare, so they are protected by the best warriors. It turns out that they have some who were able to get rid of the elven guards unnoticed. Elle could have easily escaped, but they captured her friends, leaving her no choice but to surrender. Herman realized that they needed to move immediately, but if they didn't give up on the adventure concerning the high elf, they cannot guarantee the safety of this place. They need to get to the capital, where the Tower Lord will be waiting for them. Vin calmed down, because it didn't matter who would oppose them. If Lord Veronica is with them, because she is an 8th Circle mage. But we can't relax either, if they are really on the prowl in search of a high elf. There's a chance they'll come for Vin or Theo, so they will join the convoy, and still, Theo stays here. Vin didn't want to be a burden to his student, but he didn't mind being one to his enemy. He would buy himself some time. Herman knew that he would not be able to dissuade Vin. Then he asked Vin to take care of himself. Theo entered the convoy with over 100 magic spells cast on him, just to get the carriage moving. The teleporter is much easier to use than this machine. Herman and the Red Tower mages are in the vanguard, defending. The rest of the carriages moved along the edges of Theo and Elle. It is impossible to get close to them even under a stealth spell. The carriage began to move, its speed frightening Theo. He thought they were just bragging, but at this speed they would get there in one day. Theo hoped to quickly reach the capital and return to Vin. Elle asked if Theo was worried. According to Sean, Vin is in critical condition and may suffer internal injuries. If Vin tries to use teleportation, Theo didn't like that Vin became bait. Elle said that the moment when his destiny would come to an end. Before it even happened, Theo asked how she knew. Elle said that she has a vision into the future. One of the few ways to cope with fear of the future is to see it. For those who have an incredible weakness for time, those who must sooner or later face death. It was given long ago by gods, demons, or ancient dragons. The force is not that powerful, but Elle can sense the end of time. But the ability is useless, because you can't even sense danger. And yet, thanks to Elle, Theo can relax. Now it would be wonderful if they could reach the capital safely. But will Theo be able to meet Vin again safe and sound? I brought the boys something to eat. A couple of fruits, snacks, and meat. It's simple, but it's quite enough. Theo asked if it was true that elves don't eat meat. But Elle said she doesn't give up meat. Everything in nature has equal rights, both plants and animals. Theo said he heard that elves only ate fruit. Elle said it might have something to do with cooking methods. Elven receptors are much more sensitive. They found it difficult to eat meat that was prepared with a lot of spices. They eat meat raw, without resorting to fire. It's strange, but imagining this sends a chill down my spine. Suddenly the ship shook, and Theo decided to go out and check. There was complete chaos on the ship. Theo asked the magicians what happened. The magicians said that the first carriage got into a fight with someone. They plan to move out as soon as the first wagon gives the all-clear signal. Herman was at the head of the first cart, so they decided not to interfere, so as not to disturb the mages of the Red Tower. And yet, Theo was worried. The magician explained that their task was to accompany, not to win. Here he is right. They are just escorts, not fighters. Even if they can defeat the enemy, Elle may suffer. Theo is just thinking about how to win the battle. But this type of thinking is not suitable for accompaniment. The ship was attacked. The sound of a magician with the 7th circle. Theo was sure that it was Herman who was fighting. Suddenly Herman called Anthony and ordered him to run to him. This is not an enemy they can defeat. He ordered to take Al and get out of here immediately. The connection was broken, and the magicians, horrified, decided that Herman had fallen. The magicians were overcome with panic. They began to argue and shout. Anthony finally said, "The second wagon should be ready to leave. Everyone else, get out and be on high alert." The magicians, of course, were afraid and just wanted to run away. But Anthony shouted that their goal was to deliver Miss Eleanor to the capital safely. Enough of hesitation. The magicians accepted the order. Anthony called Theo, and he ordered that his main focus should be Elle's safety, and they will stay to buy a little time. Theo promised to do everything in his power. Then Anthony continued to give commands to his magicians. Having prepared everything they needed, the boys went into battle. Unlike the Red Tower mages, who focus on direct firepower, Blue specializes in interaction. They share magic between themselves, and thanks to this, they achieve maximum power through synergy. One-on-one, the Blue Tower mage will lose to the Red Tower mage, but in a group fight, the Red Tower mages don't stand a chance. A strange creature. His mana and sounds are light, this power that they feel. Just from his presence, Anthony, an experienced magician, understood perfectly well that this place is his grave. He asked the magicians to prepare. He and his mages had no intention of retreating before an invincible enemy. Eleanor was ashamed that because of her, magicians had to go through terrible things. She began to blame herself for leaving the village, for being born. Now all these people will suffer because of her. Theo asked her not to blame herself, because she was just a victim. Those people kidnapped her from the village. They are to blame for everything. We should not blame ourselves for what is happening, but the one who is hunting her. It's normal to worry about your comrades and feel sad. There was no need to blame herself. Elle thanked Theo for his support. Theo apologized and grabbed Elle, adding down. Less than 10 minutes passed, and the monster was already here. In such a short time, all the elite mages fell, and they were still on the ship at incredible speed. And despite this, these creatures were able to catch up with them. Although weak, Theo can still sense the ship's mana. Theo, of course, sensed that the enemy was not of ordinary size, but this is already absurd. Theo had never heard of such monsters existing before, but feeling this terrifying aura, he can say one thing for sure. This monster was on a whole other level. Glatt knew who it was. He said that Superbia was still disgusting. Superbia replied that she could say the same thing. As always, he's pathetic, getting involved with these pathetic parasites. Glatt replied that Superbia was a loser who had given up all attempts to overcome the limits. An ignoramus like him, who can never understand what beauty and wisdom are. There is no right to open the mouth. The monster got angry and screamed. The monster got angry and attacked. Theo created a shield, but Theo can't handle it. An unknown creature attacked them. Grimoire of independent type, Superbia, like Glatt. It is one of the 7 deadly sins. It is pride. His essence is that of a usurper of species. He was born from a branch of predators. The monster collects within itself the very essence of creatures. It collects within itself all the features. By consuming the sample, it immediately gains the ability to reproduce its innate traits. If this creature eats Theo and Elle, it will be impossible to defeat. It is necessary to stop Superbia at all costs. Glatt asked if the boy wanted to fight against Superbia. There was no need for that. Superbia will absorb them immediately. Superbia confirmed this, but added that he wasn't interested in Theo, and if Theo didn't interfere, he would let him go. Theo flatly refused to give up the High Elf. Then Superbia touched the barrier and said, "Okay." Theo created another defense. First we need to hide Elle. First he will take advantage of this and then attack. Smoke filled the area, and Theo and Elle were thrown in different directions. Now he just needs to attract the monster's attention to himself. Theo summoned the Lord of Flame and created Inferno. That's not enough. Theo needs to use the arrow and deal a critical hit to the creature. But the creature appeared on top and attacked the lying Theo. If Theo hadn't blocked that blow with mana, he would have been dead. He will definitely die if he misses another blow like that. It's not about winning or losing now. Theo is just an ant to him. It's just as Glatt said, if he gives Elle up, he will survive. For a living being, survival comes first. But Theo asked Glatt to tell him how to defeat Superbia. Glatt didn't understand why Theo was doing this, but Theo repeated the request again. Then Glatt decided to make an exception and help. The 4th seal was broken in an unnatural way. An unusual ability rewriting has begun. Superbia asked what kind of trick the boy had just pulled. The rhythm of the heartbeat changed completely in an instant. It's like the monkey is a completely different entity. And so it was. It was not Theo who stood before him, but Prince Alfred. This is Glatt's unique skill. Theo's body was taken by Alfred. And yet Superbia was confident in himself. With this weak body, there won't be a scratch left on the Superbia. But Alfred did not listen to the monster and immediately shot. And he confidently added that this was exactly what the creature wanted. The monster's pride was hurt when some man destroyed half of his body. The troll's regenerative abilities are beyond the norm, and what Albert sees is something on the verge of immortality. He is not an opponent that Albert can defeat with normal attacks. Elle called the prince, but he asked her to hide. He sent her a light and asked her to follow him. Elle said she wouldn't leave Theo. She wanted to help, but the prince correctly noted that the creature was targeting her. It was time to stop talking nonsense and hide. Elle knew he was right. Now she would be a burden, so she trusted the prince. She believed that Theo would return safe and sound. But the creature said, "They think the elf can escape from him. There is no place on earth in which he would not find her. The monkey will become his lunch, and then he will go to the elf." The creature said he would make him regret it, about how the monkey made his own enemy out of this body. The power is truly incredible. Even the prince admitted it. If he is exposed to the shockwave, all his insides will turn to dust. This monster is not only incredibly strong, but also just as fast. And yet the prince decided to attack Magic Arrow. The prince shot straight at the monster's head. Even this didn't kill the monster, it only made it angry. The prince needs to come up with another plan immediately. Then the prince gathered mana and fired again at point-blank range. If the creature is immortal, incapable of dying, then he will simply make a sieve out of it. But the monster understood what this trick was for, and understood who the prince was. And unfortunately, he had a plan. The monster took the form of a titan, and it seemed the creature was studying the prince. He turned into a monster the prince had never heard of before. The monster declared that this was his ideal form, and the prince's tricks would not work. Blade Tail, its tail contains deadly poison. Even a scratch would be fatal for the prince. The creature is much more annoying than the aura user. If this continues, even the prince won't last 10 minutes. The prince called Theo and said that he needed complete control over his body and mind. Theo asked if he would be able to overcome it if he gave it to him. The prince said he couldn't promise without trying. And then Theo made up his mind. He allowed the prince to take control. But there is a great danger in this regard. If he fails, Theo will lose all his skills and even his ego. The monster confidently said that no tricks would work on him anymore. He believed that all the prince's actions were meaningless. The prince blocked the blow and decided to use 2 skills at once. The explosion was incredible. It was higher than all the trees. The prince used a volcanic projectile. Albert was alive. Now that their minds are completely synchronized, he was confused about where his memories were and where they weren't. If he does not regain control, he may lose his self. Unfortunately, the creature was somehow alive. Each attack by the prince only resulted in the creature changing its body. The monster accepted the attack, recognized the power, and used it to choose a new body. Completely freed from the threat of fire, it turns out that's the only thing left for him. This is a magical arrow that is based on destructive power. In a similar state, when Theo and the prince are completely in sync, it might work. The arrow was at full power. For some reason, the monster just stood there. He didn't even try to block the attack. And he didn't dodge, really. And an arrow at full power won't help. It's as if the monster is simply laughing at the prince. That's how it was. The creature just said it was ticklish. It looks like the monkey has finally run out of tricks. Now it was the monster's turn to attack, and he will kill him slowly, tearing him to pieces. Things are really bad. The creature is moving much faster, and the prince is exhausted, which means he won't be able to create a barrier as quickly. If the prince is to escape the attack, he needs a new plan. There wasn't enough strength to create a barrier, but the prince was able to create an illusion. The monster hit the illusion, it will be hard. Even if the prince uses the arrow again, it is unlikely that anything will change. It is necessary to do something that the creature has not seen yet. He must try. The prince continued to fight, and the longer he fought, the more Theo loses his own self. The monster attacked the illusion again, but now there were many of them. But the creature said that the cheap trick wouldn't work on him. He used the all-seeing eye and killed 6 illusions at once. As Glatt said, this creature has a ton of abilities. However, he could not find the real prince. The prince cast a spell to create a powerful explosion, which Albert can only form by sacrificing his hand. He will put all his remaining mana into this attack. I wonder if Theo will be able to keep his arm after this. The explosion happened, but the time limit was exhausted. Theo got his body back. The prince was able to deliver 1 precise blast. That was all the prince could do, but even after that, the monster was alive, and he was going to tear Theo to pieces. Theo held out for quite a long time. Theo thought about his parents, and he was already preparing for his death, hoping that Vin would look after his parents. Luckily, Veronica showed up and saved him, and it looks like she has transformed into her true form. She is half dragon and her sword is made of purgatory flames. Lord Veronica attacked the monster with her hellish blade. The monster said, "It's nonsense. It can't be that magic could damage his body." It was like a nervous breakdown. He was irritated that Veronica's attack worked, and he hysterically attacked her. Lord Veronica wasn't worried at all and punched the creature in the eye. The creature was on its last breath and was showering insults and frustration. And Veronica created the hellish flame of the 7th magic circle. The Lord was irritated by the mumbling, so she quickly dealt with it. The creature understood that if things continued like this body would not be able to withstand it any longer. The naive man thought that Veronica would let him do it. He cannot hide in the face of absolute power. The dragon's breath is truly incredible. And despite this, the annoying monster was able to escape. Veronica wasn't surprised by this. If he hadn't been so strong, he wouldn't have been able to hurt Herman. And Herman was not alone. A huge number of magicians also fell there. Unfortunately, only 2 survived, the elf and Theo. Theo was saved by Glad again. He should be thanked. Veronica ran to his aid. Theo had serious wounds. The Lord told someone that she could no longer hide. It was Eleanor. Theo was already exhausted, and he began to lose consciousness, and yet he completed the task. Miss Eleanor was alive and safe. I wonder how long Theo will sleep this time. 2 days after the incident, news of the accident reached the kingdom. The loss of 5 mages of the 6th and 16th circles and 8 mangacaps had a big impact. Upon receiving this news, the Tower Lords, the head of the academy, and the ministers gathered in the conference room. Lord of the Blue Tower Hadrian was in a good mood, unlike Veronica, who didn't like the old people's gathering. And while the two argued about which of them was older, the Lord of the White Tower, Orta, remained silent. Thor suggested that everyone sit down. There was no point in talking while standing. Then Thor noticed that the Lord of the Yellow Tower was missing again. But Veronica wasn't surprised. Yellow wouldn't have come from simple conversations. At last the king came and sat down at his table. He decided to skip the formalities and get straight to the point. Kurt asked Veronica to bring everyone up to speed. She told about an unknown monster, about destroyed ships. All the mages except one were killed, although the elf was delivered safely. However, the monster managed to escape at the end of the battle. Theo has an unlimited supply of luck. People started arguing. But Kurt told everyone to calm down and said they were lucky that at least the elf was safe. More than 20 elite mages have died for the sake of international relations. The families of the deceased must receive full compensation for the fallen, and the elves must pay it to them. Thor was confident that the elves would pay the debt. Kurt asked Thor to deliver the elf to their country and apologized for it. After all, Thor has just finished his long mission, but Veronica is at odds with the elves. Thor stated that he would carry out the order, and before proceeding, he wanted to convey the elf's message. She asks him to stay in the kingdom. To heal Theo, she will be able to heal not only the wounds, but also his hand. People started whispering again. This man again. This is the 3rd incident with an escort on his account, Kurt thought. Luck was still on Theo's side, and now Kurt was starting to wonder what kind of luck it was. Kurt replied that he had no reason to refuse this request. It is the king's duty to help the victim of such a huge incident. Not only that, Kurt decided to reward Theo for being the only survivor with a title and a silver medal. Theo's condition was truly terrible, and even though all the physical wounds had been healed, Theo still hadn't recovered. Elle wanted to convey to Theo how grateful she was before she left the kingdom. She doesn't want to leave until she at least says goodbye to Theo. Thor came with bad news. He said that he could not wait any longer. After all, the elves are putting more and more pressure on them every day. He understands everything. But the longer she is here, the more the relations between people and elves worsen. Eleanor understood everything, but she was ashamed that she could not thank Theo. And by kissing Theo, the elf Eleanor chose to become a woman. Finally, Theo woke up and was able to save his arm. Considering how much his body had shrunk, at least a week had passed. He wondered if Eleanor had been able to reach the kingdom without any problems. Suddenly, Theo felt a strange feeling that he had never experienced before. He remembered that his body was connected to Alfred. It seemed that this was the 6th sense. It was different from what Theo had. His 5 senses were just becoming sharper. It's like he can see several steps ahead, a 6th sense, an innate talent perfectly suited for battle. It won't be possible to master it right away, Theo was called. And he didn't even notice that there was a person sitting next to him. It was Sylvia, but she was talking in her sleep. She was asking him not to die. Theo was glad to see Sylvia. They hadn't seen each other for a long time, judging by the fact that she was dozing here. She must have been sitting with him all night. Glatt suddenly spoke up. For now, favors like that are impossible, given Theo's condition. Until he unlocks the next seal, Glatt has lost his ability to function autonomously. He is just a part of the grimoire. The system has the same powers as he does, because of which she imposed a fine on him for opening the seal in an unnatural manner. Glatt fell asleep. What they were able to do in the battle with Pride was only the result of Glatt's efforts, but it looks like it will be difficult to talk to him until he unlocks the next seal. Sylvia woke up and was glad that Theo had finally woken up. A little later, Theo told about the whole incident, told about Herman's death. Vin blamed himself for his inaction. He began to consider himself worthless because of his wound. Although he himself understood that if he had been there, it was unlikely that Herman would have been able to survive. He can only thank him for the fact that Herman fulfilled his duty until his last breath. It was the first time Theo had seen Vin in such a state, and he tried not to put pressure on him. Vin also said that this mission made Theo a celebrity in the kingdom. A simple academy student was able to defeat the Tower Lord's apprentice and kill the Lich. And then, a little later, he was able to save the High Elf. Let's be honest, it was Glatt who did all this, not Theo. The royal court began work on representing Theo as a hero. Sylvia didn't know about Glatt either, so she considered our Theo a hero. Pure naivety. Vin handed the scroll to Theo and offered to read the headlines about it. The awards ceremony is waiting for Theo, and all this will take place at the court ball. A court ball is an event normally organized by any royal family. It was of far greater importance here, since Kurt was known for his dislike of useless luxury, and that is why he ordered his subordinates to send refusals for any such events that entailed useless expenses. Kurt turned out to be cooler than he had been shown before, although all the attention was on Theo. But Theo was like that too. All this luxury didn't mean much to him. 30 years later, Theo is the first to receive this medal of an outstanding magician. However, Theo had never heard of it, so he asked if the medal was really valuable. Then Vin decided to explain in simple terms how valuable the medal was, that this medal was equivalent to the title of Viscount.